quorum. Could we have the roll call, please?
Yes, Mayor. Good evening.
Thank you.
Mayor Sticks.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Whitman. Here. Councilmember Rule.
Here.
Councilmember Francina.
Here.
And Councilmember Lang is absent.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chief Deputy City Clerk. Would you please say the pledge?
Yes. Welcome, honorable city council, staff, members of the community. Our American flag is at this end of the room here. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, and welcome everyone to the February 26th, 2024 special meeting of the Ojai City Council. We have one. Is there a motion to approve the agenda? I'll move to approve. Second? I'll second. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we will move on to our one discussion item, resolution of the City Council of the City of Ojai, California, affirming Ojai's International City of Peace commitment and calling for a ceasefire and other measures. So Councilmember Francina and Councilmember Rule, you have a presentation?
Yes. I'd like to ask City Manager Harvey to speak to the administrative ideas that we
Happy to do so, council member. So I just want to bring to the council's attention as well as the public's that there are a couple different documents that will be referenced in the course of this evening. And I hope that they're labeled so that it's understandable, but I'll explain that really quickly. One is the agenda, the special meeting agenda, which looks just like a city council agenda. And attached to that is an agenda report and the resolution that was properly posted and noticed this past Friday. And copies of that are available in the back of the room if you would like that. In addition to that, there is a separate document that is standalone. It is a resolution, and at the very top of it, it clearly states not posted with agenda on 2/23/24, but distributed to public on 2/26/24. So that is a resolution that will likely be discussed this evening, but was not posted with the published agenda on Friday. So I just want to make that clear to everybody. And again, those are both available to the public in the back of the room if you would like to have copies of that. Thank you.
Thank you. So this is an unusual situation. We have two versions of a draft resolution. One of them was agendized, and then there were revisions made over the weekend, and we were not able to agendize it. So in order for clarity, we're trying to figure out the best way to do this. And I think that what I'm going to do is read the full the not posted. Well, I'm going to start with the posted, and I'm going to, as I go through it, discuss the changes, right? So I'll go first paragraph, for instance, the first whereas, there are no changes. Okay, so this was there to begin with, and it remains there. If the audience and the council would like, I'm happy to read that particular whereas. Would that help people? Okay, then
Yes, may I say something?
yes.
There's a lot of people standing at the back of the room, and the meeting could go, 2-3 hours. Are there any more chairs available, or we can't open up everybody's fine? Yeah. Okay. And then okay. And remember that the meeting is recorded. So all sounds, even waving a piece of paper, cough, everything is picked up by the mic. It makes it harder for people to hear. And I hope that we can all see that this evening is a golden opportunity for us to really show that we can listen to one another in a peaceful dialogue manner. Let's see it as an opportunity to really learn. We're going to learn tonight from each other. We've spent several weeks talking to many members of the community, and I can't tell you how I've grown just by listening to all the different perspectives. So we're hoping that we can do that tonight. And if you don't mind me taking another half minute, several people have asked me, why did I have a change of heart about bringing back the ceasefire resolution? Because at one point after the December meeting that was disrupted, we decided that, that it was not appropriate for us to discuss this. But over the course of time, I've come to feel, and so has Councilwoman Rule, and I think perhaps other members of the council, that meeting, it just always felt like it was hanging over our head, that we never, we were ushered out of the council chamber. Things happened that did not need to have happened. We did not have a police, our wonderful chief of police there, who always is so good if there's like disruption from the audience. She is just wonderful about giving a choice between, stop disrupting or you have to leave. And that tonight, I just hope that it's clear to everyone, we want to complete the meeting. We don't want to end up with chaos. And in order to go through the whole process, I think we have 40 speakers. Is that correct? We have 40 speakers, and I'm very willing, and I'm glad that people are going to speak tonight on this important world situation. But in order, we will not tolerate disruption. It will absolutely not be tolerated, and I just want to make that clear. Thank you.
Thank you. So just so that you're clear on the process, I'm going to go through the resolution, new and old, and with the goal of making sure that everyone is clear what was and what is, most especially what is. After that, we will have any questions that we would have for the attorney, we would ask. After that, we will call for general comment. After that, we will have a discussion. After that, there will be a motion or not. And after that, there will be a vote. So I just want you to know what the process is going to be. All right. So I am going to start. I'm a little bit confused on the best way to do this, but I'm going to just go ahead and start. So the first, whereas there was no change, and it says, whereas we acknowledge that this resolution is outside of the City of Ojai's municipal code and direct jurisdiction, but sometimes we are called to make statements outside of our normal purview. So that remains the same. The second whereas is also the same. Whereas all human life is precious and Ojai's commitment as an international city of peace calls on elected officials to promote peace for all people, no matter their faith or ethnicity, in accordance with international humanitarian law. There is a change in the third whereas. So it did read, whereas the City of Ojai condemns, whereas the City of Ojai condemns the recent rise of anti-Semitic, Islamophobic, racist, and xenophobic attacks in our country and across. I'm sorry, my bad. I already got confused. Let me start with, this is the original. Whereas the City of Ojai condemns the recent rise of anti-Semitic, Islamophobic, and xenophobic attacks in our country and across the nation. And so the addition, we added the term racist to that. The statement now reads, whereas the City of Ojai condemns the recent rise of anti-Semitic, Islamophobic, racist, and xenophobic attacks in our country and across the nation. So once again, it was the addition of the term racist. So this is a new whereas clause. Whereas ceasefire is hereby defined as an agreement for both Israel and Palestinians to cease firing and fighting. So this was a definitional statement put in as to what ceasefire, what we mean by that term. So the next, there's also a change on the next whereas. So the old whereas, and let me know if this is tedious. The old, it's pretty tedious. Oh, okay. No,
No, I think
sorry, outvoted.
And you're doing really great.
Okay,
I'm
thank
following
you.
along.
Okay, thank you. So the original read, whereas on October 7th, 2023, in a coordinated attack, Hamas and other terrorist Palestinian groups invaded Israel, raping women and killing 1,200 people, and took 240 hostages, including infants and children. The new statement reads, whereas on October 7th, 2023, in a coordinated attack, the militant arm of Hamas and other militant Palestinian groups invaded Israel, killing approximately 1,200 people and taking 240 hostages, including infants and children. The citation for that is the same. Both are at the end of the document.
The next paragraph, I think, is the most complex.
Yes, the next the next paragraph. So that was the old. Did I read the new already? No. Okay. So the new is, I'm sorry, I'm trying
You
here.
have to read the old first.
I did read the old, didn't I?
No, it's a new one. Whereas I'll read it.
No. Well, wait.
Whereas according to the Gaza Ministry of Health,
No. I didn't read the new, I don't think. No, I did
Don't you
not read
start
the
with the
new
old?
of that one.
oh, I thought you started with the old.
No, I started with,
Councilmember, you've been doing a very good job. You starting first with the original.
I'm starting with the
And
original.
then you're going to the new, and then that way, when you go to the new,
Right.
you're able to point out the changes.
Right. So now I'm going to the new for this statement, or did I read it already?
no.
You didn't do the original yet on this one.
Sometimes.
And if we could come to quiet, please, it's a little hard to hear with ambient noise.
No.
Thank you very much.
Don't. Oh, okay. All right. I'm all good with that. Yeah. All right. Thank you. All right. Take two. Whereas, according to the Gaza Ministry of Health, an agency of the Hamas-controlled government, 29,000 Palestinians living in Gaza have been killed by the Israeli Defense Forces. The military does not distinguish between civilians and combatants. Israel reports that it has killed over 11,000 Hamas and Islamic jihadist fighters. In addition, thousands more Gazans are missing and over 1.5 million civilians have been displaced from their homes and are without access to electricity, drinking water, and medical care for the thousands who have been wounded. Okay, so the new phrase is, this one is confusing because we actually broke it out. Okay, whereas the Gaza Ministry of Health reports at least 29,410 Palestinians living in Gaza have been killed, 70% of whom are women and children. The ministry does not distinguish between Palestinian civilians and Hamas combatants in their count. Now we have a completely new statement. Whereas thousands more Gazans. Whereas,
Just tell me when you want me to read.
no, I don't want you to read.
Okay.
Whereas millions of people are at risk if a ceasefire is not achieved and humanitarian aid is not delivered. I don't know where I am. Sorry.
It's okay. So, council member, if I might,
Please.
I would go,
Okay. Here we go.
I would go back to the new, and you just explained that, whereas in the original there was one, and it's now broken out into two whereases with some
Got it.
additional added. And so I think you were going into the new whereas, if you will, that starts with thousands more.
Okay. All right.
Yes.
So this is was pulled out and made its own separate entity and added to. Whereas thousands more Gazans are missing, with many assumed to be under rubble from ongoing bombing. Over 1.5 million civilians have been displaced from their homes and are without access to electricity, drinking water, and medical care, especially for the thousands who have been wounded. Millions of people are at risk if a permanent ceasefire is not achieved and humanitarian aid is not delivered without delay. Okay.
And if I might, I think
Yes.
you can now jump
To
the one that says, whereas Israel,
okay, yes.
yes.
So this one is actually no changes, whereas Israel, the United States government, the International Court of Justice, and many others have called upon Hamas and others to release the hostages they hold.
Same.
And that is the same, so I'm not going to read it again. There is a new whereas that is added, so there's nothing for me to change here. Whereas Israel is called to release political prisoners in a fair exchange of hostages and prisoners. So the next whereas, this is the old, minor changes here. Whereas international organizations like Amnesty International, the World Health Organization, the U.S. Agency for International Development, the International Rescue Committee, Doctors Without Borders, and many others have called for a ceasefire in order to prevent further loss of lives and to ensure humanitarian law.
National
International humanitarian law. Thank you very much. So the new version reads, whereas international organizations such as, so we did some grammar there, Amnesty International, the World Health Organization, the U.S. Agency for International Development, the vast majority of United Nations countries, that is new, the International Rescue Committee, Doctors Without Borders, and many others have called for a ceasefire in order to prevent the further loss of civilian lives and to ensure international humanitarian law. Okay, so this is a new whereas clause inserted. Whereas if a permanent ceasefire is not immediately achieved and humanitarian aid is not delivered without delay, the expected Israeli military action in Rafah is predicted to create a humanitarian crisis of immense proportion, including deaths, famine, and disease for over 1 million refugees. These are, let's see.
That looks the same.
Yes.
The next one's the same.
Yes, it was the same. Okay. The next clause is and this is the same, whereas the majority of Americans support a ceasefire and want to see the U.S. leverage its diplomatic relationships to prevent further violence and civilian deaths. The next whereas clause is the same, whereas elected officials may use the platform provided by their office to advocate for measures that minimize violence and promote peace. The next whereas the United States holds immense diplomatic power and responsibility to save both Israeli and Palestinian lives. This is a
Same.
new addition. This is a new addition. Whereas there is ample evidence that both Hamas fighters and the Israeli Defense Forces have committed atrocities and war crimes. So I'm going to read the old, now therefore be it resolved. And then I will read the new, therefore be it resolved. And the therefore be it resolved is the action to all of these whereases. Now, therefore be it resolved that the city of Ojai supports U.S. Congress Resolution 87, House Resolution 786, and joins over 70 U.S. cities, including Chicago, Seattle, and Oakland, and calling on our Congress members to demand an immediate and permanent ceasefire. And
that's in the new version.
yes.
And maybe we don't need to read the old one. People can see it. Well, then okay.
Okay, all right. Very good, all right. I will just read the old one there. Then, okay, this is the old one. Therefore be resolved that the city of Ojai calls on our Congress members to demand an immediate ceasefire. Hamas and others release all hostages in Gaza in exchange for an agreed number of prisoners in Israel, unrestricted entry of humanitarian assistance into Gaza, the restoration of food, water, electricity, and medical supplies to Gaza, and respect for the implementation international law in accordance with our desire to achieve peace around the world. So now I'm going to read the new, and for the most part, well, it's the addition of the House Resolution 786 and the addition of the other cities and that have.
Yeah, joins over 70
yeah.
other
Yes.
US
So
cities.
now, therefore, be it resolved that the city of Ojai supports U.S. Congress Resolution 786 and joins over 70 other U.S. cities, including Chicago, Seattle, and Oakland, in calling on our Congress members to demand, and this is the list, an immediate and permanent ceasefire. Hamas and others released all hostages in Gaza in exchange for an agreed number of political prisoners in Israel, to cease unconditional military aid to Gaza, to Israel, to place a neutral peacekeeping presence for the protection of all innocent civilians, unrestricted entry of humanitarian aid and assistance into Gaza, the restoration of food, water, electricity, and medical supplies to Gaza, and respect for the implementation international law in accordance with our desire to achieve peace around the world. And the final, be it therefore resolved, was unchanged, and it reads, be it further resolved that a copy of this resolution be sent to city councils in Ventura and Santa Barbara County, the office of State Senator Monique Limon, Governor of California Gavin Newsom, U.S. Representative Salud Carbajal, U.S. Representative Julia Brownlee, U.S. Senator LaFonza Butler, U.S. Senator Alex Padilla, U.S. President Joe Biden, and U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris, urging them to take immediate action to use their position and influence to end violence and promote peace. And I hope that that was more helpful than it was confusing. So now we are ready to figure out, does anyone on council have any questions for our legal team?
Thank you very much, Councilmember Rule, and thank you, Councilmember Francina. So this is the time of the meeting where council has the opportunity to ask questions to our legal team or to council members. Any questions? Councilmember Whitman?
No.
Nope. Okay. All right, we will move on to public comment at this point. We have over 40 cards. So our protocol, when we have more than 25, we drop the public comment to 2 minutes each. At the end of the 2 minutes, you'll hear a gentle chime and the mic will be cut. So in the spirit of equity, if you could please stop talking. And if you could all be quiet, it is really hard to hear when there's noise in the back of the room. So we'll begin with Sheila Cohn and then Ethan, and I'm sorry if I pronounce your name, Stolhastad, and then Larry Steingold.
My name is Sheila Cohn. I'm an Ojai resident since 1996, and I am beyond furious, frustrated, and fearful. Last weekend, I spent some time with my niece, who is the outgoing mayor and a city council member of Sonoma, a city of about 10,000 residents. Their city council, without formalities and resolutions, agreed that they would only deal with city business. You, our city council members, have wasted numerous hours, not only yours, but also those of others, on meetings and resolutions when you should be doing your job. Delegations from Egypt, Jordan, Qatar, and Israel are starting to meet again today to do their job, to try to solve the situation in Israel and Gaza. And they are better equipped than you, and they're having difficulty. Mayor Sticks and council members, you should be ashamed of yourselves. You have let this situation turn into a conflagration. You have let us down. You have the power to stop this firestorm now. Say no to a resolution proposal today and say yes to a resolution to mind your own business and take care of the people who have put their faith in you. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheila. And We appreciate your enthusiasm. We are going to ask you to refrain from clapping, of course, booing or making any noise. Thank you. Next, we have Ethan Stahastad, and then we have Larry Steingold, and then Anand Paunambalam.
Hello. I'm in support of passing a ceasefire resolution. I urge you to vote yes on the new resolution that we've read. The genocide in Gaza is as much a local issue as it is an international one. And as representatives of Ojai, International City of Peace, you have the responsibility to stand for peace and to support oppressed people everywhere. I support bringing home all hostages, the 134 Israeli hostages, as well as the 4,500 Palestinian hostages. The people of Palestine have lost so much, their families, their homes, their food and water, their happiness. Every day a ceasefire isn't implemented, they lose more and more. I would like to speak about Aaron Bushnell, who I'm sure you heard of. He was an active duty soldier who self-immolated. He set himself on fire yesterday in protest of the genocide in Gaza. He stated, "I will no longer be complicit in genocide. I am about to engage in an extreme act of protest. But compared to what people have been experiencing in Palestine at the hands of their colonizers, it is not extreme at all. This is what our ruling class has decided will be normal. Free Palestine, free Palestine, free Palestine," as he died. Thank you.
Thank you, Ethan. Next, we have Larry Steingold, then Anand Panalambam, and then we have Carol Munter.
Larry Steingold, voter. Larry Steingold, voter in Ojai. You forgot the words anti-Christian next to xenophobic. You should add murder instead of killing. And a lot of the dead people are in the tunnels and the military bases that were built underneath the cities on purpose to defer attacks and retaliation. But more importantly, this is all, I have here 14 new resolutions for conflicts: Myanmar, Somalia, Ethiopia, Ukraine, Democratic Republic of Congo, Senegal. We're going to be here, and I promise you, there will be 15 new resolutions every other week from people here on every conflict, so we can do this. Because this conflict is no worse or no better than Senegal, Somalia, Niger, Uyghurs, anywhere. All the conflicts are important. But why this one? Because these people got the squeaky wheel. They're getting money from Qatar. Who knows? It doesn't matter. They're as passionate about this as we are. And I don't put it past them. That's okay. They have a right to be. And so do we. But if you as a city want to be doing this every other week, because there's going to be resolutions coming, it's not a threat, it's a promise. Because every conflict, every ethnicity needs the same rights as the Gazans, the Palestinians, the Arabs, the Jews, the Israelis, and everybody else. So stick to what we're doing as the city, unless you want to be bogged down. Okay, because that's what's coming. And then we'll have resolutions to raise taxes and lower taxes. And we'll have resolutions for all this stuff. And you'll be doing this every other week. So please come up with a resolution to either shoemaker stick to your last or come up with a complete worldwide peace initiative. One or the other, because we can't be coming doing this every.
Thank you, Larry. Next, we have Anand. Excuse me, we'll stop the meeting unless you can keep it together. So please, no clapping. Okay, then Anand, then we have Carol Munter and then Lisa Bach.
My name is Anand Punambalam. I've lived in Ojai for the past 5 years. I'm a Tamil American originally from Sri Lanka, and I have a particular reason for speaking up today about the importance of passing this resolution for a ceasefire in Gaza. When the British left Sri Lanka in 1948, we Tamils were in the minority and were subject to discrimination of all kinds, followed by mob violence and pogroms. I was part of the Gandhian nonviolent resistance. When the Tamil youth, frustrated with the lack of progress, took up arms, most Tamils who could leave the country left it. I was one of them. The civil war went on for 20 years, then a 5-year ceasefire. When the ceasefire broke down, the UN agencies, the Red Cross, the NGOs, and the journalists were forced to leave the Tamil homeland in the north and east. Then came genocide, the same playbook: starvation, mass bombardment, killings, hospitals, schools. By UN estimates, more than 70,000 killed, Tamils were killed. And according to census data, 146,679 missing and forcibly disappeared to this day. But there was no one to witness, no one to speak up against what was happening. Only years later did Channel 4 in England piece it together in the film Killing Fields of Sri Lanka. Today, the mothers and families of the disappeared are in their 8th year of a continuous vigil and fast for their missing loved ones. As a Tamil American, I ask you to bear witness, to pass this resolution, to speak up and say no bombs, no killing in our name. It is the very least we can do. Thank you.
Thank you, Anand. Next, we have Carol Munter, and then Lisa Bach, and then Austin Ringelstein.
My name is Carol Munter. I've lived in Ojai for the past 5 years. I am a Jewish American horrified by our government's complicity in the catastrophe taking place in Gaza. Was I horrified by what happened on October 7th? Of course I was. Do I condemn it? Absolutely. Do I understand the horrific conditions of occupation that give rise to such hatred? I think I do. Do I understand the fear and the fury fueling the ensuing catastrophe? I think I do. But starvation of people, of newborns, torture, degradation, total destruction and devastation, and unspeakable crime against humanity. Is this really self-defense? Does this make anyone safe? Each morning, my husband and I watch the live footage of the catastrophe. We witness the devastation, hear the numbers of the dead, 100 in the past 24 hours, or maybe 86 or 120, mostly women and children. And then we weep. What has happened to Jewish values? When our federal government turns a blind eye to mass demonstrations, refuses to hear the people, the thousands of Jewish people saying not in our name, local governments must step up to the plate. Although I wish the resolution before you was stronger, I am grateful that Ojai has a chance to add our voice to the international outcry for peace. I understand that there are people here who do not support this resolution, who are fearful for Israel and for themselves. I would hope in the coming months that we could form a listening circle here in Ojai, a place where in a heartfelt way, some, even a very few of us, could put our assumptions aside as
Thank you, Carol. Next, we have Lisa Bach, and then Austin Ringelstein, and then Dor Evan Katz.
I am Rabbi Lisa Bach. I serve the Jewish community of Ojai. From 2014 to 2020, UN agencies have spent nearly $4.5 billion in Gaza, money from the US, European, and other governments, money intended to improve Palestinian lives. However, the incredible web of underground tunnels under Gaza tells another story, that Hamas values their mission of terror and the destruction of Israel more than the lives of Palestinians, as they diverted that money into building tunnels and military infrastructure. Hamas teaches hate and elevates death, while we Jews elevate life and teach peace. Hamas strategically placed their tunnels underneath homes, mosques, and hospitals, even storing weapons and rockets in civilian homes and bedrooms. Hamas terrorists dress as ordinary civilians. Hamas turned these homes, places of worship, and hospitals in Gaza into necessary military objectives, imperiling civilian lives. Have you read the Hamas charters that call for the elimination of Israel? If not, how can you know what kind of enemy that Israel, the only democratic country in the Middle East, is fighting? And why? Why are you not outraged that Hamas used all this money for tunnels rather than building up people's lives, homes, and economy? Instead, what is happening here is demonizing Israel as Israel defends itself from the clear and present danger of Hamas. You are also singling out Israel. There is a double standard here, a standard that is not applied to other countries. Ultimately, a ceasefire supports only Hamas in regrouping, a group that is committed to the erasure of Israel's existence.
Thank you, Rabbi Lisa. Next, we have Austin Ringelstein, and then Dora Evan Katz, and then Emma Huber.
Good evening. My name is Austin Ringelstein. I am for a ceasefire. The ceasefire resolution that was the second version that you read, which does not dehumanize Palestinian people. I'm here because I love all people, and I've seen how the world has grown up to also show their love and support for Palestinian people in the face of dehumanization. Of course, we all strive for world peace, and as a veteran for peace, I advocate for the disarmament of weapons of mass destruction worldwide. However, we have to be specific in our calls for a ceasefire because the people in Gaza are facing the most dire situation humanity has faced in our lifetimes. And while all genocidal campaigns are insufferable, the one happening in Palestine is happening with our own country's tax dollars and bombs funded by people who pay for our city. This is the utmost time for specificity in calling for a ceasefire in Gaza and not watering it down. A universal ceasefire call or simple thoughts and prayers would take the substance out of the message. Those who say that demanding a ceasefire in Gaza is not Ojai's business do not understand the web of life that connects us all, nor do they understand that being a city of peace is not a privilege, it's a responsibility and a call to action that speaks louder than words. I wanted to read a little something from Anne Wright, who prepared a statement for the UN Security Council. She represents Veterans for Peace, an organization that I'm involved in as an Iraq veteran. She said, on the topic of today, there is no doubt that weapons supplied into conflict areas have a detrimental effect on the prospect for settlements of conflicts. In fact, the continued supply of weapons will prolong any conflict. The important question is, how do you get conflicts to end? I will begin with a reminder that the process for ending wars begins with a ceasefire. Ceasefires are viable ways for a pathway to peace. Ceasefire. Thank you.
Thank you, Austin. Next, we have Dora Evan Katz, then Emma Huber, and then Anita Hendricks.
Hello, everybody. My name is Dor Evan Katz. I was born in Israel and have lived there all of my life. I lived in a settlement about 1 mile from the Gaza border, and on October 7th, we were extremely lucky to escape the terror and murder. We then made our way to the USA with my little kids that are over there. And a friend of my father from LA gave us a place to live, and it is right here in Ojai. We arrived here 10 days ago, and I read the paper about this meeting, so I'm here. Me, like most Israelis and the world population, wishing for open borders and peace all over the world. We don't want nothing about it unless this. But if someone, and let's call this someone Hamas, got into my or yours house, rape the women, the Israeli women, burn people alive, slaughter children, and murder dads and babies, I will defend myself, my country, and you will do the same. We are the Jews, the Israelis. We came from the Holocaust. Don't forget it. My grandparents are Holocaust survivors. We have the right to defend ourselves and to say no more. I remember that after 9/11, USA got into a war. 9/11 and October 7th.
Thank you, Dor. Yep, next, I'm sorry, we have to, in the spirit of equity, that's, next we have, next, I'm sorry. No, I'm sorry. Next we have Emma Hubers, is she here? Excuse me. Let's have some decorum. Thank you, Emma. And after Emma, we have Anita Hendricks and then, Laurel Felice.
Gaza, Palestine. Stop the killing. Gaza is bleeding. She's bleeding dying kids. She's bleeding mother's tears. Where's the leniency? Let's overcome the inhumanity. Let's live with mercy. Let's have a life without brutality. Now we know the truth. We know the fake peace. We see the lies that devils try to smooth. We fight for peace. Peace is what we're looking for. Peace screams and wails with every breath. Peace is the world cure. Peace is our desire on earth. A poem by Muhammad Raza Mistir. My name is Emma Huber. I'm 20 years old. I grew up here. My father grew up here. My grandmother grew up here, and my children probably will too. I'm asking you to pass a ceasefire resolution. I'm tired of little girls identifying their mothers' dead bodies. She's my mother. I know her by her hair. I'm tired of watching mothers scream out for their children. What did my children do to deserve this? I'm tired of seeing dead babies in dead father's arms, her in her dead father's arms. I'm tired of seeing grandfathers cradle their dead grandchildren. She's the soul of my soul. It's been 143 days since October 7th. October 7th has happened 25 times in these 143 days and many more in the past 75 years. This didn't just start on October 7th. Hasn't it been enough? I am advocating for the cease of murder, and they are advocating for the continuation of murder. Why is asking to stop the murder of Palestinian civilians a controversial question? We're supposed to be an international city of peace. I hope to see that in action today. Your support matters. Thank you.
Thank you, Emma. Next, we have Anita Hendricks, then Laurel Felice, and then Reverend Marilyn Miller.
I'm overwhelmed. How anyone could oppose stopping the killings on both sides, I don't know. When we're talking about exchange of prisoners or hostages, why don't we name a number, 4,500 Palestinians in exchange for the number of the, on this sheet here, for the Israelis. We are talking about the displaced peoples. Who cares if they're Palestinian or Israelis? 1.5 million people. I am Native American. My tribe, when the Europeans came, they walked out of their village because of the atrocities.
Anita, could you address the council, please?
Yes.
Thank you.
They walked out of their village because of the atrocities committed by the Europeans coming through New Mexico. And they knew that if they stayed in their village, they would be killed and maimed. And they walked out en masse from their village. I see something similar to what's happening with Palestinians today. The Jewish people have undergone a Holocaust. They lost their homes. And they went to Palestine. Europeans gave them that land. But there were Palestinians living there who were displaced. The Israelis wanted a home. The Palestinians had to give up their home. Of course, it's an incendiary situation. We have the West interfering with this situation. And now we're sending more and more money for more of these innocent civilians to be killed. How can anyone act self-righteous about trying to save the lives of these people? Please support this resolution. I beg of you.
Thank you, Anita. Next, we have Laurel Felice, then Reverend Marilyn Miller, and then Lenny Clafe.
My name is Laurel Felice. My Hebrew name is Chaya. The root of that name, Chaim, means life. I am here tonight to speak for 2 minutes about my life as a Jewish citizen of Ojai. My life feels very different since October 7th. I no longer feel safe. The incidents of anti-Semitism have become personal. My temple, the Jewish community of Ojai, has received bomb threats. We have a security guard for most events, a highly trained Marine. When I talk to him, he admits these times are violent, and even with all of his training, he cannot protect us from a bomb. I ask you, Mayor Sticks, Leslie Rule, Susan Frankina, Andrew Whitman, to imagine what that must feel like in your body and mind to be unable to go to services or social events at your place of worship without fear, anxiety, hypervigilance. I have always worn a Jewish star necklace with joy and respect, and now with trepidation and fear. I can be attacked for this symbol. My face, my body, my contribution as a citizen will not be considered. No dialogue of compassionate understanding will be possible. The attacker will only see the Jewish star. I ask you, Mayor Sticks, Leslie Rule, Susan Frankina, Andrew Whitman, to imagine living with that kind of fear every day and every night. This ceasefire resolution is divisive and has fanned the anti-Semitism in our village to an appalling new reality. I have been a citizen of Ojai for 26 years. I would like to die here, in peace, not in violence. I ask all of you, my elected representatives, what can you do?
Thank you, Laurel. Next, we have Reverend Marilyn Miller, then Len Clafe, and then Jim Yarborough.
I'm Reverend Marilyn Miller, and I am the co-chair of the Ojai Interfaith Council. And I've been a participant with the International City of Peace team since its inception. The Cities of Peace has in their resolution that the City Council signed that peace was to be kept at the local level. It doesn't say anywhere in the charter that you should take on international issues. The war in the Middle East is at its roots a tribal feud, and the current conflict is the publicized directive by the terrorist Hamas regime to kill all Jewish people worldwide and eradicate the state of Israel, the only democracy in the Middle East. Just like the Japanese Americans were not responsible for the attack on Pearl Harbor, the American Jewish community of Ojai is not waging war on anyone. Yet, members of our Jewish community have been verbally assaulted. Jewish businesses have been vandalized. Jewish professionals and businessmen have lost business, clients, and customers. The temple has been threatened with bomb attacks, and the Jewish community can no longer hold services without presence of an armed guard. The losses suffered in Gaza are staggering and heartbreaking. But how much more loss does this Jewish community of Ojai deserve because the Ojai City Council cannot resolve this issue? Scores of U.S. diplomats continue to work on a ceasefire and the return of hostages without any.
Thank you, Reverend Miller. Next, we have Len Clafe, then Jim Yarborough, and then Casey Rodriguez.
Good evening, Leonard Clafe. I live in the city of Ojai. I urge you to vote yes on the revised resolution. Why this war as opposed to speaking out on other wars? To me, the answer is simple. The Senate bill that was recently passed calls for the provision of $14 billion in military aid to Israel. That's in addition to the $3 or $4 billion we regularly give every year to Israel. That Senate bill calls for $3 million for medical aid to Gaza. It's our tax dollars. It affects the city of Ojai. It affects all people. Will it make a difference whether you pass this resolution? Maybe yes, maybe no. But people are speaking out all across America, not to mention the world, demanding a ceasefire. I would hope that your voice is added to that call. I am Jewish. My parents taught me over and over and over again that people would kill me for that simple reason. I understand never again. But in addition to being Jewish, I'm a human being. In the 12 or so years of the American involvement in the War of Vietnam, approximately 50,000 American soldiers were killed. In less than 5 months since the Hamas attack on Israel, almost 30,000 Palestinians have been killed. The majority civilians, not Hamas soldiers. How many children in Gaza are missing limbs? We have no idea. We do know that pretty much everyone living in Gaza is homeless, hungry, thirsty, and or in desperate need of medical attention, basics which the Israeli government has denied them. Israel claims that it's necessary to bomb schools, hospitals, and apartment buildings because Hamas soldiers hide there. How many civilians is it okay in order to kill a simple?
Thank you, Len. Next we have Jim Yarborough, then Casey Rodriguez, and then Bob Burke.
In the interest of time, I'll limit my comments. It is completely the right thing to do to pass a ceasefire resolution. This is a city of peace, and other cities in California, San Francisco, for example, Madera, Long Beach, Hollister, just off the top of my head, Richmond, have all passed ceasefire resolutions. So yes, pass the ceasefire resolution. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Next we have Casey Rodriguez, then Bob Burke, and then David Cohn.
It's good seeing a female sheriff in the house. Thank you. I want to make sure we noted that. Haku, hello. My name is Casey Rodriguez. I am the California Democratic Executive Board member of District 38 and a local educator. The views and opinions I express here are my own and my own voice. I hesitated to join tonight due to the reports of unsafe local roads. However, despite my concerns, I felt compelled to attend to demonstrate to the voters who elected me that they can rely on me to do what's right, to be a voice for those who feel voiceless or too afraid to speak up, when so many have fallen short on doing this. Because I am deeply involved in various community events, I have witnessed firsthand how the deliberate ignorance surrounding this issue is affecting our local youth. I've witnessed the hatred, the bullying, and the division that this silence is fostering within our community. In my role as an educator, I strive to be vigilant for those children who may feel unloved or forgotten. Each morning, I make it a point to ensure they know they are welcomed and loved. Even if I'm the only one, it's crucial that they know they are seen and valued when they return home. Tonight, I want to emphasize that a resolution is not just about the people of Palestine. It is also about our local community, especially our youth. Our young people need to see that we have learned from our history of injustice, genocide, and intolerance. They need to know that we are ready to be agents of change. And tonight we declare no more in Palestine or anywhere. On this unceded Chumash land where we just finished celebrating the 200th Chumash revolt anniversary, it's clear that we who lead in a good way are not afraid to stand up. We who do see the next 7 generations in mind, ensuring we do we do what's right for them. If we remain silent and ignore the inhuman ways we're teaching our youth.
Thank you, Kate. Thank you, Casey. Next we have Bob Burke, then David Cohen, and then Rick Bloom.
I have lived in Ojai since 1988. This situation started in November, 3 months ago. Over the last 3 months, every single city council meeting has been addressed by the Ceasefire Now group. The ceasefire resolution wasn't even on the agenda. The group showed up again and again. It has been time-consuming. Problems that Ojai faces never even made it onto the dais. The job of the city council is to work on and solve the problems that Ojai faces. The local homeless population, hiring a new city manager after 2 managers quit, fixing the roads, and many other situations. Hamas started the Israel-Palestine war on October 7. Men, women, and children were murdered by Hamas. Heads and limbs were cut off. Many women were raped. In many cases, individual women were raped by many Hamas men. Young people burned alive. Israel is in the process of ending this horrific situation. If the American Civil War was ended before the Union Army won, there could still be slavery in the U.S. today. Nonetheless, the ceasefire resolution is something that the federal government needs to deal with. The Ojai City Council has other issues that are more significant to the Ojai residents. Please vote no on the ceasefire resolution.
Thank you, Bob. Next, we have David Cohn, then Rick Bloom, then Marion Skyer.
I am David Cohn, a 10-year resident of Ojai. I urge you not to adopt any form of ceasefire resolution. No matter what it says, it will reward and encourage terrorism. Hamas knew that Israel would respond to its orgy of murder, rape, and kidnapping. They knew that, as a result, thousands of Palestinians would die. They did it anyway. They wanted the deaths to turn world opinion against Israel. They hoped that places like Ojai would condemn Israel. The details of a resolution will not matter. The words will rarely be read. Any resolution would be just one more condemnation of Israel, one more victory for terror and terrorists. And the essence of what you do, that's the essence of what you are being asked to do. Don't support terrorism. Vote no.
Thank you, David. Next, we have Rick Bloom, then Marion Skyer, and then Elizabeth Holland.
Hello, I'm Rick Bloom, a proud resident of Miners Oaks, and my only regret is that I wish I had the ability to vote in Ojai city elections. The story we know to date is that tens of thousands of people have been tortured and killed as of this month, both in Gaza and in the state of Israel. The highlights we know are the gang rape of women and mutilation of children on October 7th, famine and the total collapse of the healthcare system in Gaza, and millions have been displaced from their homes on both sides of a conflict which goes back thousands of years. Yes, there have been no pleas made to you to support the oppressed people of Sudan or Darfur, or urged our government to help stop at least 20 other spots around the world from committing genocide against equally innocent lives. Only Gaza. Your focus is only Gaza. Why? It's too big an issue to handle here in Ojai. If your focus was truly international, you would call for peace in all of these conflicts. You would have passed dozens of resolutions calling for peace in every conflict currently raging around the world, but you haven't. You bought into a false narrative. Have you asked yourselves why you've allowed your meetings to be sidetracked for months to take a stand on a resolution about a conflict 7,500 miles away that will not move a single grain of rice into a hungry child's mouth? Instead, you who are tasked with the governance of our tiny little community that we value are being asked to choose sides between the people who believe that Jews should have a homeland of their own and the ones who do not. It's exactly the same argument that Hamas has in their charter. This resolution is biased from its inception. It's divisive in this community, and you have no business entertaining it. Take the smartest stand of your careers in municipal government.
Thank you, Rick. Next, we have Marion Skyer, then Elizabeth Holland, and then Aviva Bernat.
My name is Marion Sheree. I'm Jewish and I'm a Zionist. My father fled from the pogroms in Russia and then later the Nazis in Germany. He escaped to Palestine in 1935 and fought there until 1946 so that Israel would be a safe haven for anti-Semitic violence. As recent horrific attacks by Hamas make clear, violence against Jewish people takes place in Israel, but also here at home. Since October 7th, anti-Semitic acts in America have quadrupled, up from record numbers in 2022. Here in Ojai, our temple received a bomb threat. Jewish property was vandalized, all in the name of Free Palestine. We have heard Israel being demonized tonight and in city council meetings of the last 3 months. We have watched the relentless craziness unfold, how police had to step in. We have heard Zionism, the belief that the Jewish people should have a state of their own, being tossed around as an insult equal to Nazi and genocidal racism. To be clear, the aggression of the Free Palestine warriors unleashes aggression against Jews, condoning the taking of hostages, brutal rape of innocent women, and the burning of babies on October 7th. They blame Israel for killing the children of Gaza instead of the Hamas terrorists hiding behind masks in tunnels beneath schools and hospitals, using children as human shields. Put blame, please, where it belongs. And now, once again, the City Council is contemplating a ceasefire resolution that says we're okay with the very real danger that the anti-Zionist playbook you have been handed brings to the Jews of Ojai. You are placing this symbolic gesture over our concerns. You must vote no and stop this madness. City Council, I want to look in your eyes when you raise your hand and state.
Thank you, Marion. Next, we have Elizabeth Holland, and then Aviva Bernat, and then Nuria Rosa Cristofalo Fernandez.
Hello. I am a licensed marriage family therapist and a trauma therapist. I'm a Jewish. I am a trauma therapist here in town. Why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? This is so shameful. Are you kidding me? Women had their breasts cut off and we're using them as tossing. Are you kidding me? Israel's not allowed to defend itself. Are you listening and watching TikTok videos and getting your information from that? I am shaking with sadness for my community and people around the world and Israeli people that are fighting for their identity. My family are from Israel, not Europe, ancient Israelis. My grandfather, my great-great-grandfather was Israel Baruch. We are Israeli and we belong in Israel. We are not occupiers. Why are you not picking on every different thing going around the world? Because this is anti-Semitism. And we're afraid. I'm afraid for my children. I'm afraid for my community. We have to walk in fear and deal with all of this. Please stop doing this to us. This is the third time and it's traumatic. Stop this. It is not solving anything. What you're creating is trauma and it's negligent, harmful to everyone involved.
It needs to stop.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Next, we have Aviva Bernat, and then Nuria Rosa Cristofal Fernandez, and then Leah Hecker.
I can see you all and I won't be able to see you. Thank you for standing for the people of Ojai. I think you've heard, and actually I'm going to start with, I'm Aviva Bernat, an Ojai resident in Sousa's district. You've all received letters from me. I'm here because of what you've already heard. There is fear in your community, in your Jewish community. We elected you. You represent us. I wish we could all make a resolution and save and protect the Israelis and the Palestinians, but that's too late. But what you can do is bring your eyes back to us. If you haven't heard it on the three people before me, there is so much fear. You have brought harm, these resolutions and these meetings. We are not sleeping. We are not well. Hear this. We are your Jews. This is the time. If people were listening in the 1930s and not standing by, the world would look different. It's time for you to see us. See me, see all the Jews. When we say we're quaking, that we are not safe, that we have a right to survive, I mean it. And Andrew, I know it's not fun to hear this. I had a lot more and a lot different written down, but after hearing this, there is something I need to say. You removed the raping of women. I am here to bring the voiceless. I could be like Cyrus and roll on the ground and paint blood red coming out of my vagina and my broken pelvis. I could do something to simulate the facts. These are coming from the UN investigation and the Israeli investigations and American investigations of the worst incidents of sexual violence against women, and it was done deliberately and sadistically. I sent you the articles. These voices aren't here. There is more to be brought, but here.
Thank you, Aviva. Next, we have Nuria Rosa Cristofal Fernandez, then Leah Hecker, and then Debbie Bloom.
Hello, my name is Nuria Rosa. I'm a high school student here in Ojai. I've come in front of you guys multiple times in the last few months. I have written poems. I have read you the last words of dying babies. I don't know how to get through to you guys. I am here to represent the youth who want to see a peaceful world, who want to see a future. Like, I am so excited for my future, and I want the children of Palestine to be able to be excited for their future. I want there to be peace, and I don't understand how anything in this resolution doesn't clearly state that we want peace all around. This is not harmful. What's in this resolution is not harmful. It's just saying that we want peace and we want the killing to stop. A ceasefire means a ceasefire. All the fire, it stops. Period. Like, please pass the second resolution, which has taken out harmful xenophobic language. I wish I had something more prepared for you guys, but I have been in front of you so many times that I think you can just think back and really please pass this resolution. It's literally the least you could do. I will be voting and I'll remember all of your guys' decisions, and so are my friends.
Thank you, Nuria Rosa. Next, we have Leah Hecker, then Debbie Bloom, and then Eva Cristofal Fernandez.
My name is Leah Hecker and I'm a longtime resident of Ojai. On Friday, I got a call from a friend of mine who said, "Did you see the ceasefire resolution is back?" I said, "Yeah, I read it." His family has been discussing, should they move out of Ojai now? Is now the time to run? The tsunami of anti-Semitism that has been following in the wake of the war in Gaza is real. The numbers show it, and our lived experiences show it. And the anti-Semites do not care that punching Jews in the face or calling them racist, genocidal assholes, or kicking them out of online spaces, or throwing bombs in their kindergartens. All of these things are happening right now. None of these things are going to free Palestine, nor will it bring peace there or here. I am of the opinion that Israel has a right to exist. That makes me a Zionist. So there are anti-Zionists on the one side, and me, really scared shitless, on the other side. And then there's you. You are taking it on yourself to choose sides. Why? Is that really your job? What am I afraid of? Here's what I'm afraid of. I am afraid that by passing this one-sided resolution, which you made worse, that you are signaling to the anti-Semites that you condone whatever they do in their hatred of Zionists, in their hatred of me. Have you even considered what happened in the cities that passed these things? The death threats in Chicago, the hearts with Hamas in Oakland? Don't take sides. Hold your hand over all of them.
Thank you, Leah. Next, we have Debbie Bloom, then Eva Cristofalo Fernandez, and then Vaughn Montgomery.
Good evening. Good evening. I'm a resident of Ojai and I'm active in the Jewish community of Ojai. Much has been made of Ojai being an international city of peace as a reason to pass the ceasefire resolution. Apparently, nobody looked at what being a city of peace actually means. This is a direct quote from the City of Peace website. Peace building is more effective at the community level. International Cities of Peace defines peace as the consensus value of safety, prosperity, and quality of life for all in the community. Being a city of peace means committing to advance safety, prosperity, and quality of life in their community. This means here. This means in our community of Ojai. It means living peace at a grassroots level, creating a city of peace out of the various fractions and divisions in one city. Peace starts at home. It starts with our ability to bridge divides and foster dialogue despite differing opinions and interests. The screaming, the yelling, the vandalism in the last few months, is that peace? Trying to force through a resolution by whatever means necessary, despite the protests of a large part of the community. Is that peace? We have found that all of this has caused our congregation to have to hire a guard for every one of our functions. Is that because there's peace in Ojai? City council members, ask yourself, is voting for this divisive resolution going to bring peace to Ojai? Is this advancing safety, prosperity, and quality in the life of Ojai? How can Ojai be a city of peace if there's no peace in the city? One request, stop putting your time towards matters outside of Ojai's jurisdiction. Vote no on this resolution. Thank you.
Thank you, Debbie. Next, we have Eva Cristofalo Fernandez, then Vaughn Montgomery, and then Meg Houlihan.
Good evening once again, City Council members, Mayor, Chief Trina. I wanted to come and tell you that I have been so troubled by how much trouble it seemed to be bringing folks on our city council to find an acceptable method to put forth a peaceful resolution on behalf of our city of Ojai. I'm very, very pleased with what y'all have come up with in the one that was read as the newest version tonight, and I do urge you to pass that. I was struck when I looked at the International Cities of Peace website, how the first image that you see up there is a beautiful picture of a palace, which houses the International Court of Justice. I found that to be a very positive sign in terms of what is important for international cities of peace. My name, Eva, comes from Chava, which means life. And we want to preserve as much life as we can on the entire planet. That is an interspecies, intergenerational, intercultural, everything concern, because life is sacred. I want to speak to the fact that a couple of times now, the mention has been made of bomb threats. This is something which I feel confident everybody here that's in an official capacity, as well as all of us citizens, would take extremely seriously. So when I heard about it, I was concerned to find what the progress had been about.
Thank you, Eva. Thank you, Eva. Next we have, quiet please, next we have Vaughn Montgomery, then Meg Houlihan, then Elena Pascarella. Quiet please. Thank you.
Hello. Thank you for bringing this back into consideration. I know it's not an easy choice to make, and I understand people who think it's foolish, and I understand people who think it's wise. Personally, I think it is our business when tens of billions of dollars from the federal tax base are going to fund wars, and wars are often based on half-truths or lies, and wars often benefit the few at the expense of the many. These wars add to the threat of regional or global wars that very much do and have and will affect us. These wars make Americans less safe, both at home and abroad. Appealing to local government is the only way we can feel heard or represented when our state or federal government are either too far away to hear us or too compromised to listen. The least we can do is advocate for diplomatic solutions to complex problems instead of violence, which only begets more violence and more problems. As the husband of an Israeli immigrant and the father of Jewish children, I reject the idea that a ceasefire only benefits one side or that a ceasefire is biased. A ceasefire implicitly in its definition applies to both sides. And when rockets are aimed at Tel Aviv, Jewish people will sleep more at peace, and people in Ojai will feel more at peace when there's a ceasefire called for. Doesn't mean it'll happen, but at least we can do is call for it. I would hope we could zoom out a little. A lot of people seem to be coming from one side or the other. It's pretty clear to me there's bad actors in the IDF, in the Pentagon, and Hamas. When you're okay with murder of innocent civilians, that says everything. Most common people are not okay with that. Please honor the common people and call for a ceasefire.
Thank you, Vaughn. Next we have Meg Houlihan, then Elena Pascarella, and then Brenton Butler.
Good evening, council members. My name is Meg Houlihan, and I live here in Ojai. I'm here to urge you all for the immediate need for a ceasefire resolution. This is a humanitarian crisis, and the conditions that Palestinian babies, children, mothers, and fathers are facing are beyond dire and are only getting worse with each day that a ceasefire is not passed. I'm a mother to a 14-month-old baby, and I've seen videos of babies the same age as mine, dead, bloody, lying lifeless in their screaming mother's arms. The only reason that my baby is safe and warm and at home tonight, instead of being bombed because of where they live. Palestinian children deserve to live and to grow up. I cannot carry on with business as usual while Palestinians are experiencing horror every waking and sleeping hour. I vehemently urge all of you to pass a ceasefire resolution, as too much life has been taken away already. The targeting of civilians is a violation of international humanitarian law and cannot be allowed to continue. The people that were killed today could have been saved yesterday if a ceasefire were passed. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Meg. Next, we have Elena Pascarella, then Brenton Butler, and then Tree Bear.
Good evening, council member and city manager and others. I guess I haven't seen you. Thank you so much for continuing these meetings that are so important to us, to all of us, and I appreciate that. I just wanted to acknowledge the people who have left us too soon, the Palestinians and the Israelis, their families who are mourning the loss of their loved ones and are trying to survive through this war, this genocide. I just wanted to go back to what Ava was talking about because she didn't get to finish. And that was, she made a call because there had been some supposed bomb threats. And she called the police today and spoke with them, and there was no police report made. So the community here is saying things that aren't true. And I would just like you to know that, and maybe you can follow up with the police department yourself, because that's what was told to our friend Ava. People wonder why this is so important and why we need to talk about it, because we are all connected and we keep making this statement. The genocide here in our own country has never been acknowledged, and therefore our country, our government does not acknowledge it in Palestine. Our money is going there, as you know. And so I come to you asking, if war could make peace, wouldn't we have had peace by now? I ask you to pass the ceasefire resolution because you represent everybody in Ojai, not just small communities, but everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Elena. Next, we have Brenton Butler, then Tree Bear, and then Fabiola Gaza, or Saga.
Hello, as you discuss and deliberate the resolutions, whether deciding between one or the other or deciding to pass one, I would just like to reiterate that it's important that we treat substantial claims with that due respect, and we expect substantial evidence. When it comes to describing Palestinian lives and Israeli lives, we use equal measures and we treat both parties as equal. If we are going to describe the deaths of armed combatants on one side, we need to also make clear the deaths of armed combatants, reservists, and active military members on the other. I also think it is very important that we do not, if we are going to look at October 7th like it is the beginning of history or the beginning of this conflict, it is unwise to continue in that direction. And if we are to compare October 7th with 9/11, then it is a very sad day indeed. As after 9/11, we use those attacks to justify the killing of 1 million Iraqi citizens. And I will never forget that. I also just want to quickly thank all of my Jewish friends and clients that I've made and have had over the years that have still hanging out with me and not treating me like a terrorist who hates them, but as someone who just wants our city council to look at an issue with logic and reason, cut out the emotions. And someone says, why do we care about these other issues? Well, why do you stand on the road with a sign that compares the 2.3 million people of Gaza as terrorists? If you're going to do that, let's talk about Irgun.
Brenton. Next, we have Tree Bear, then Fabiola Zaga, and then Ivy Gullickson. Is Tree Bear here? Jerry?
Here he comes.
Hello, everyone. Yeah, Tree Bear here, and I share the concerns with everyone. And if there's such thing as an enemy, it's a militarized industrial complex all over the world. We do our part and hold ourselves accountable on what we're contributing to, what kind of products we're buying, and what kind of influences are we absorbing, and what kind of attitude do we have? What are we projecting? My attitude is if there's such thing as an enemy, it's the militarized industrial complex. War itself is the enemy. Thanks for listening.
Thank you, Tree Bear. Next we have Fabiola, and then Ivy, and then Chris Barton. Fabiola here? Nope. Okay. Ivy?
Good evening. I'm Ivy Gullickson. I'm an Ojai community member and I'm a birth doula. So what we are witnessing unfold is deeply close to my heart as someone who assists women in childbirth. We have 50,000 pregnant women in Gaza without water. We have babies dying of dehydration, children dying of starvation. A 2-month-old baby died of starvation yesterday. And what we are about to witness is there's really no words to describe this. So what we are asking you and asking for a ceasefire is not about sides. It's about humanity. Every 10 minutes in Gaza right now, another child is killed by Israeli bombardment. So by the time we close this meeting today, you can just do the math. Why are we asking you to use your voices about this particular issue when there are genocides, other genocides in the world? It's because our tax dollars have paid for 80% of the bombs, hundreds of them 2,000-pound bombs that have been raining on the most densely populated areas on Earth. This is in violation of international laws of war. More children have been killed by Israel in these last few months than were killed in 2 years of war in Ukraine, 15 years of war in Iraq, 7.5 years of armed conflict in Yemen, 5 years of war in Syria, and 11 years of war in Afghanistan. We know that diplomacy, not bombs, is what brings hostages home. Israel is the only country in the world that tries children in military court, often obtaining confessions by torture and upholding those confessions in military court. These children are hostages too. We support a ceasefire as the first step to creating the conditions necessary for peace. The never again means never.
Thank you, Ivy. Next, we have Chris Barton, then Jack Weber, and then Jody Lewis.
Hello, my name is Chris Barton. I live and work in Ojai, and I'm here once again urging you to pass this resolution calling for an immediate and permanent ceasefire between Israel and Palestine. And also in light of some comments that have been made tonight, I just like to remind folks that any criticism and protests of the Crown family, owners of the Ojai Valley Inn, has nothing to do with their Jewish heritage and everything to do with their war profiteering through their majority stake in General Dynamics, which manufactures the 2,000-pound M-series bombs that have been used to blow up neighborhoods, hospitals, and refugee camps in the last 4 months in Gaza. Each day that passes is another day of intentional and indiscriminate bombing of civilians, another day of bulldozers razing communities to build illegal settlements, another day thousands of Gazans wounded and sick without access to adequate medical attention, another day of restricted access to food, water, electricity, and fuel, another day of explicit statements of intent to commit genocide by Israeli government officials. These crimes against humanity would not be possible without the financial support and political protection that our country gives to Israel. Each and every one of us is funding this atrocity with our tax dollars, which imposes on us the moral obligation to do what we can to stop it. When appeals to our federal representatives and President Biden himself fall on deaf ears, where else do we have to turn but our local government? Please help us join the growing list of cities, organizations, and individuals in demanding the Biden administration call for and facilitate an immediate ceasefire. As 1.3 million displaced Palestinians are currently under siege in Rafah, an area smaller than our tiny town of Ojai, I urge you to pass this ceasefire resolution so that our collective voice might become impossible for our federal representatives and President Biden to ignore. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Chris. Next, we have Jack Weber, then Jody Lewis, and then John Drucker.
Good evening, council members. I have sent you so much data. I won't bog you down with any more. I am a Jewish community member in favor of the ceasefire resolution, the second one that was mentioned tonight. And I'm going to take my time here just to speak to some of the points that were made tonight. First of all, if anti-Semitism is on the increase in Ojai and around the world, I propose to turn the argument of anti-Semitism on its head, and I think it's factual and true. Benjamin Netanyahu and the Israeli government are waging war in the name of the Jews. That is an example of how they conflate Judaism with their own policies. So if anti-Semitism is on the rise here, it's because this war is being fought in the name of the Jews. And this is why Jews all around the United States and the world are standing up and saying, not in my name. I am a Jew, and I say, not in my name. So if we want anti-Semitism to stop, which has been drummed tonight, let's stop the war, because the war is promoting Islamophobia and anti-Semitism. I think that's a mind-blowing perspective. Rabbi Lisa spoke about Hamas entirely. Hamas has committed atrocities. This resolution is not primarily about Hamas. It's about saving what we can and honoring and acknowledging the slaughter, the plausible genocide that is happening in Gaza. There are many more points on this sheet that I could debunk tonight, but I don't have time. Thank you, and please pass the resolution.
Thank you, Jack. Next, we have Jody Lewis, then John Drucker, and then William Wyrick.
Oh, hi again. Jody Lewis, lived in Ojai for 12 of the last 15 years, married to a Jewish man for 24 years, raised my 3 children Jewish in this community. Someone here tonight said peace begins at home. I've been a chorus of truly diverse constituents in your chambers in favor of the ceasefire resolution over the past 4 months. Tonight, we are here supporting the second version. I've grieved tens of thousands of Palestinians slaughtered, killed with our tax dollars that pay for the bombs provided by Ojai's benefactors, the Crown family. I join with so many, including those in Ojai's Muslim population who have been threatened and feel, frankly, too afraid for their families to appear in public in your chambers. I'm in gratitude that the ceasefire resolution is coming to a vote tonight, even as my heart breaks for the tens of thousands of people killed since the December 20th special meeting ended without a vote. I take issue with Rabbi Lisa's quote tonight that what Israel is about, quote, elevates life and teaches peace. Israel's bombing, using over 66,000 tons of explosives provided by the U.S., have displaced 1.9 million Palestinians, resulting in 29,400 deaths and counting, including 12,660 children, 800.
Jody, I'm sorry.
We can have more time. Something.
We got quiet. Okay. Keep going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's make sure the
can we
phones are
give,
off.
yeah,
Make sure everyone.
let's
Sorry.
keep going.
The time was paused, so it will restart
Okay.
as soon as she begins.
Thank you, Weston.
Thank you. 8,570 women, 70% of the injured being women and children. And I could go on with the mosques, the hospitals, the journalists, the devastation, the destruction of homes and entire lands made uninhabitable. But my time is short. And I'll say that to please vote your heart and your conscience.
Thank you, Jody. Next we have John Drucker, then William Wyrick, and then Rebecca Shapiro.
Good evening. I'm John Drucker. I live and work in Ojai. I'm a former U.S. Senate aide for foreign policy and a graduate of Columbia University School of International Affairs Middle East Institute. This resolution is a travesty on so many levels. First, we all feel for those suffering from this conflict, but it is a matter of whom to blame. Hamas, a terrorist organization that started this war with the greatest act of barbarism and savagery in modern times, or Israel, which is fighting a war to stop that violence once and for all. What's wrong with a permanent ceasefire? The fact that only Israel would abide by it. Hamas has already violated a ceasefire in effect on October 6th and has promised to violate any future ceasefires in order to commit more October 7ths over and over and over again, and that's a quote, until Israel is eliminated, close quote. What's wrong with supporting House Resolution 786? First, it's labeled a resolution regarding occupied Palestine. Implicit in that is a call for the elimination of Israel. So if you want to say that Israel shouldn't exist, vote yes on this resolution. If you reject that genocidal language, vote no. Next, after causing chaos and near riot in December, you put this back on the calendar. It seems you live to divide us. Your first and primary obligation is to safeguard the citizens you represent. It's not to weigh in on controversial foreign conflicts that inflame communal emotions. And this new resolution and what you have heard tonight, terms like empty accusations of genocide, indiscriminate bombing, torture, war crimes against humanity against Israel. These are hateful, vile defamations that fuel further violence.
John, next we have William Wyrick, then Rebecca Shapiro, and then Rosemary Hall.
Thousands of years of history, to peoples who view themselves as indigenous to this part of the world, locked in a tragic, just a tragic situation. Resources poured into this area to promote this conflict to even more tragic levels from people warring, with different factions all over the world. You're being faced in a resolution tonight to choose between whether we're going to describe October 7th as an act of militancy or an act of terrorism. What happened to promoting dialogue in this community, which is the true foundation of peace within our community? Instead, we have meeting after meeting of debating the resolution and inflaming this community rather than trying to structure the kind of communication, the kind of dialogue within this community that might be able to bridge this divide, this tragic divide. I urge you to do the best thing and try to find a way to promote peace in this community locally rather than trying to find the wording that is invariably divisive, and to conclude with the opposite of peace in the hearts of this community. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Next we have Rebecca Shapiro, then Rosemary Hall, and then Bill Miley.
Hello, my name is Rebecca. I'd like to, for the purpose of this speech, short speech of 2 minutes, call myself Rachel. They were going to name me Rachel. And just to give you a little background information, I grew up in the DC area for the first 30 years of my life. I'm in my 40s, so I have some political understanding. I took a comparative religion class in college, which they qualified as philosophy. So I'd like to, as a prerequisite, call this speech not religious, but political. I don't believe that the war going on in the Gaza area is a religious-based war. I believe it is all political. It has nothing to do with religion. I have, at least for the purposes of my speech, 5 nationality backgrounds of Eastern European descent and as well as Canadian. I'm very proud of my heritage. I don't believe it belongs in politics. So I would like to comment on the end of the paragraph. One solution might provide a neutral territory where any misunderstandings can be discussed by both countries and promote clarity, as well as both having timed opinions on their voices to be heard and also, in addition, translated to the other country, as well as both nations can vote about decisions for a neutral in-between territory known as neutral land areas such as Gaza. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. Next, we have Rosemary Hall, then Bill Miley, and then Diana Kubilis.
Hello again. I'm Rosemary Hall. Thank you for having this meeting. So I've been thinking a lot about humanizing numbers lately. It seems we are suffering from a lack of empathy and understanding of the gravity of numbers that are human beings. In the past months since we have been meeting with you, and I wish we didn't have to meet with you, honestly, 30,000 people have ceased to exist. And here we are in Ojai, where the population is 7,412. So 30,000 is around 4 times Ojai as being dead. These are people, 47% of which are under the age of 18, all in the name of self-defense, which leads me to ask questions around, what do we really need? Do we really need that much violence to feel safe? What lengths do we go to feel safe? I feel unsafe in a world where the death of 30,000 and impending starvation in 4 months is an act of self-defense in the name of safety. And our tax dollars are directly funding this, and our town collects tax dollars directly from a family who profits from the creation of weapons used to do this. And this is what I think about when I hear, but why Ojai? It's just a small town. Many tensions have arisen in Ojai around housing, growth, development, because it has taken the stage internationally as a destination town. This makes it not just a small town that has nothing to do with anything but somewhere in the public eye. Frankly, I think it's delusional to parade around and say Ojai is just little. When the past year, the annual Mars conference was hosted by Jeff Bezos here in Ojai Valley Inn. People have come here for many reasons, many for peace, because this place is a place of peace. We can't pretend we are tiny and unknown. We can't pretend we're just a small town. We are enmeshed in culture and direct.
Thank you, Rosemary. Next, we have Bill Miley, then Diana Kubilis, and then Robin Gerber.
Hello. A question. How did this new resolution get drafted? Who added, quotes, to cease unconditional military aid to Israel? That's very inflammatory. I strongly object to this new draft. It's not transparent. It's not timely. As this resolution is premised on the city's membership of the International City of Peace, look at their mission statement is important. It does not include using this membership for crafting resolutions of peace for bodies other than the city itself. This foundation for this resolution is wrong. Consider adding another whereas, a statement of fact and precondition for the damage, the deaths, the injuries, and the humanitarian crisis. Example, whereas Hamas has chosen to construct several hundred miles of tunnels underneath cities and residential zones for their military activities. And whereas Israel Defense Forces, in order to neutralize Hamas, has to use military aggressive activities with destruction and neutralizing in the tunnels. Also, the last sentence, our desire to achieve peace around the world is a goal that goes well beyond the region and resolution purpose that you're basing this on. And then the last thing I want to say is the point, the resolution is being based on the wrong premise. The International City of Peace says it was founded in 2019. It's inspired hundreds of cities to work on peace within their own area, not beyond. So it's to better their own community.
Bill, next we have Diana Kubilis, then Robin Gerber, and then Keenan Newman.
Hi, my name's Diana Kubilos. Can you hear me? And I thank you for your time today. In urging you to support our calls for a ceasefire resolution, I'll start with the most fundamental question of all. What would we all and what would you want the world to do if a genocide with death rates assessed at higher than in any armed conflict of this century were happening to your children, your community, your country? Would you want the world community to stand up in your defense, or to do as the US has done 3 times now, to be the lone vote at the UN Security Council to veto a ceasefire resolution? My most essential plea to you all is that you stand back and see the truth behind the politicizing of calls for a ceasefire, that decades of conflict in the Middle East have taught us that more bombs will only continue the cycles of hatred and violence, and that the only pathway to eventual security and peace for both Israelis and Palestinians begins with a ceasefire. As the group Combatants for Peace, started by an ex-Israeli Defense Force soldier and an ex-Palestinian political prisoner, says, we are here to show the world that there is another way. So let us support divestment from US funding of the Israeli military and investment instead in to support approaches to peace and security that are proven: community building, diplomacy, cooperation, and common security. We implore you to stand on the humane side of history and join the 70+ US cities who've supported a ceasefire resolution. Thank you.
Thank you, Diana. Next we have Robin Gerber, then Keenan Newman, and then Peter Deneen.
Hi, I'm Robin Gerber, a resident here in Ojai. I appreciate that the staff report says that the new resolution acknowledges the conflict in Gaza falls outside the city of Ojai's jurisdiction, but points out a need for a city statement on that matter. But it does not point out any need. You simply say we are called to make statements of our normal, outside of our normal purview. Called. What does that mean? It would seem this was more of a shove by protesters than a call. You might as well just delete your vision statement, and you have one. It's on the website. Many councils, and Susie, you've been part of them, have worked on that statement. We rely on that as what you do as your job. It says Ojai is a sustainable and resilient city that preserves and protects its quality of life, and it goes on to explain how you do that. And what that means and what it doesn't mean is inserting yourself into international affairs. You don't have to have an awfully big crowbar to fit it into your vision and goals. As far as the City of Peace proclamation, it's just that, a proclamation. Your protocols tell you proclamations are ceremonial. They bind you to do exactly nothing. They're not a call either. You schedule this meeting, go through your agenda, discuss it if you want, but I really suggest that if you make any motion at all, which you don't have to, and you don't have to second one if it's made, that you make a motion saying that you will stick to your jurisdiction, and thank everyone for their passion on this issue, and urge them to write their member of Congress. Thank you.
Thank you, Robin. Next we have Keenan Newman, then Peter Deneen, and then Naima Holmes.
You may have pressed the button on the microphone.
Boom. My name is Keenan. I'm a resident of Ojai. I'm here today to voice my support for passing the Ojai ceasefire resolution, demanding that our state and federal representatives support a permanent ceasefire in Gaza. More than 30,000 Palestinians have been murdered by American weapons since October 7th. Many people have said that this is beyond the jurisdiction of Ojai. This is beyond the jurisdiction of everyone in this room. And our taxpayer dollars fund 2,000-pound American-made bombs that can continue to drop on densely populated refugee camps, flattening neighborhoods, disappearing children under rubble, and murdering entire extended families in a single blast. Over 2 million innocent Palestinians are demonized as terrorists in order to justify their displacement, forced starvation, and collective punishment. They are denied water, food, electricity, fuel, and healthcare. We cannot remain silent. This is a war crime supported and funded by the United States. As American citizens, we have a responsibility to speak up. As a community, we have a responsibility to speak up. We have a responsibility to stop this death and destruction. Peace is not an idea, and it is certainly not silence. Peace is an action. If we are truly an international city of peace, then we must have the courage to stand in solidarity with the people of Palestine living under siege. We must refuse to be complicit in genocide.
Thank you, Keenan. Next, we have Pete Deneen, then Naima Holmes, and then Ian.
Shalom, Council. Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Peter Deneen, and I stand before you tonight as a native son of Ojai, as a 12-year veteran of the United States Armed Forces, and as a Jewish American. I'm a writer and an educator here in our community. I went on my Taglit, my birthright trip to Israel in 2013. As I speak, many of my friends in Israel are sleeping in bomb shelters and are displaced. As Hamas and Hezbollah fighters continue to lob missiles into Israel, my thoughts are with them as I speak. We are all here tonight because we care about human life, and we care about justice, and we care about mercy. And we believe in the albeit imperfect system of representative democracy. That is this process. When leaders face moral dilemma in between elections, we help them hear our will. It is in the best interest in the long-term security of Israel and the global Jewish diaspora that the Israeli government lead the way to a ceasefire. A two-state solution can only begin there. The horror of October 7th demanded a response by Israeli Defense Forces. Their response, however, has been disproportionate and is now endangering the people of Israel and developing enmity for the global Jewish people worldwide, including myself. It is our duty as citizens to communicate to our leaders up the chain of command to allow our congressional representatives and the president to feel supported in the decision to expeditiously find a way to negotiate a ceasefire. I too have wondered whether this is the appropriate body to declare such a resolution, and I believe it is. I believe we should pass this resolution and walk the walk as a city of peace supporting peace.
Thank you, Pete. Next, we have Naima Holmes, then Ian, and then Carol Wade.
Hello, good evening, City Council and community members. I am a mother. I'm a resident of Ojai. My kid attends public school here. I've spoken a few times. I've tried to show you that it is a local issue because, yes, as many have said, our tax dollars are going to fund this war that is killing and killing and killing, and there's no peace in sight. But now with the rest of my time, I just wanted to bring us back to the ICJ South African's case and a list of some statements that were made. Here's a list of some expressions of genocidal intent against the Palestinian people by Israeli state officials. the Prime Minister of Israel stated that Israeli soldiers understand the scope of the mission and stand ready to defeat the bloodthirsty monsters who have risen against Israel. He described the situation as a struggle between the children of light and the children of darkness, between humanity and the law of the jungle. This is a battle not only of Israel against these barbarians, is a battle against civilization and barbarians. On October 28, 2023, as Israeli forces prepared for their land invasion, the Prime Minister invoked the biblical story of total destruction of the Amalek by the Israelites. The relevant biblical passage reads as follows: "Now go attack the Amalek and prescribe all that belongs to him. Spare no one, but kill alike men and women, infants and sucklings, oxen, sheep, camels, and asses." On October 12th, President Isaac Herzog made clear that Israel was not distinguishing between militants and civilians in Gaza, stating in a press conference to foreign media, "It's an entire nation out there that's responsible. It's not true, this rhetoric about civilians not aware, not involved. It's absolutely not true, and we will fight until we break their backbones." The Israeli president is one of the many Israelis who have handwritten messages on bombs being dropped on Gaza, paid by us. On October 9th, Israeli Minister of Defense in an Israeli situation update advised that Israel was imposing a complete siege on Gaza. No electricity, no food, no water, no fuel, everything is closed. We are fighting human animals and we are acting accordingly. He also informed his troops on the Gazan border that he had released all restraints.
Thank you. Thank you, Naima. Next, we have Ian, then we have Carol Wade, and then we have Ivana Karapansik.
The United States is complicit in genocide, as Israel is the top receiver of money from the United States, and the planes that drop the bombs and the bombs themselves are made here in this country. Our government is complicit. Up until this moment, this city has been complicit. This county, this state, this nation. You do not need to be convinced of what is right. Do what is right. What you know is right. Stand up for the people of Palestine. There's a genocide that is happening. We need to stop that. It's very simple. Pass the updated ceasefire resolution, the second version, that includes better language and is not racist. Stand on the right side of history and be a real advocate for justice in our world and in our community. The US and Israel killing Palestinians does not make anyone safer. It is a sad logic that people are saying a ceasefire will jeopardize their safety, while the lack of a ceasefire is killing people right now in this moment. In case you are thinking of yet again siding with genocide or letting the manipulation of Zionist ideology affect your decision, let me leave you with one more statistic out of the many statistics that you've heard over months. 10,000 Palestinians have been killed since December 20th, which, as you'll remember, was the last special meeting that was held on this topic on passing a ceasefire resolution. 10,000 lives that you did not have the courage, the humanity to speak up for.
Thank you, Ian. Next, we have Carol Wade, then Ivana Karapansik, and then Abudu. Can we have quiet, please? Hi, Carol.
Hi. Thank you for reconvening this previously interrupted meeting, thus allowing the democratic process to be completed. I appreciate that. I appreciate your work here, and I also appreciate everybody that's joined us. My name is Carol Wade. I'm a resident of Ojai with 4 adult children, of whom 3 still live in Ojai. We all vote. We all take up our responsibilities as citizens and community members. We do our best to be good neighbors, to be good citizens, to create community in this valley. This community does not exist in a bubble. We are part of a county, a state, a nation, and a planet, to which we are also responsible, and that's why I'm here. The genocide in Gaza is recognized by the majority of the citizens of Ojai, of the Ventura County, of California, of the United States, and the majority of the nations of the United Nations, and it is happening in Gaza. The U.S. government is supplying the weapons for this genocide with our tax dollars. This is an issue for every citizen in our country, including the citizens of Ojai. The bottom line for me is that all life is sacred, Palestinian and Israeli. Please vote to pass this ceasefire resolution. Please stand with most of the world for permanent ceasefire between Palestine and Israel. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. Next, we have Ivana, then Abudu, and then Bree Skelly.
Hello, my name's Ivana. I'm a resident of Ojai. I don't understand the history of this conflict. I think it's very confusing and very complex. And yet I deeply believe that we can all come together here tonight to stand up against violence and promote peace for both the Israelis and the Palestinians. The ceasefire resolution is clearly an attempt to stop the harm and the violence. We can all in this room agree that this war has gotten out of hand. As we've heard multiple times now, 30,000 people dead. The purpose of the resolution is to stop the violence. The fear that many people speak of tonight exists on both sides. It's not one-sided. And the ceasefire resolution can help to stop that. Please pass this resolution as a symbol of peace for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Ivana. Next, we have Abudu, then Bree Skelly, and then Shanti.
Good evening, Council. I'm an Ojai resident. Thank you, Souza and Leslie, for working to bring this meeting to fruition. I'm quite disappointed that Councilmember Rachel Lang could not join us this evening. I don't want to doubt that she really could not change her previous obligation, but based on her previous discomfort at our December 20th meeting, it is curious. Dear community members, if you do not like or approve of the ways that the Ojai Ceasefire Now group has gone about calling attention to this genocide, that's quite all right, because this is not about us. Many people who were here at the recent meeting and heard the piercing screams of a member of our group as he ran into the room, many people were upset about that. Disturbed, irritated, more upset about that than what's happening in Gaza. Why? Fear, shock, felt in your own bones. Those were not fake screams. You heard my brother invoking the spirit of the innocent martyrs of Gaza. You felt for a moment in time the fear that the people of Gaza have constantly been experiencing for the last 143 days. This is not about us. This is about the people of Palestine, the people of Gaza. If your support wavers for them because of what our group has done here in Ojai or Ventura County, let that show how shallow your support is. Please reflect on that. That is not a call out, that's a call in. Please support the new resolution, which you will know which one it is because it's literally stiffer. It has a little backbone in it. It is the least we can do, Council. Blessings on your courageous.
Thank you, Abudu. Next, we have Bree Skelly, then Shanti, and then Grace Malloy.
Good evening. I am a resident of Ojai, and it's nice to see you all again as we return here, concerned citizens and people of the world. There's been multiple people who have come up here and said really, really important and powerful things with numbers about people, concerns about the constant bombardment that the people of Gaza and Palestine have been experiencing for so many days. And I think about the response of asking for a no to a ceasefire, and I wonder about it. I try to find some level of how to connect with that because I so deeply, deeply believe in a ceasefire and a permanent ceasefire. And when I think of the no, it immediately seems to come from a place of fear and divisiveness and a us versus them. And when I think about the call for a ceasefire, a permanent ceasefire, it's only in support of life and of peace and a sense of togetherness. One thing that I do want to bring up is this is not an international distant issue because all of the things that have been stated about our tax dollars, but we also have Palestinian and Palestinian Americans in our community here today, tonight, ongoing. So it is a part of an us. And so I ask you to vote in support of a ceasefire for hope of togetherness, to join the people across the world, the millions of people marching, the leaders standing up, the countries voting for yes. Let's come together.
Next we have Shanti, then Grace Malloy, and then Harshada Wagner.
My name is Shanti. I live in Miners Oaks. These are some of the atrocities committed by the IDF since October 7th. When I read this, I would like for us to try to imagine each of these numbers as people. Over 30,000 Palestinians in Gaza have been killed. Over 100 journalists have been killed. Over 300 healthcare professionals killed. Over 400 schools damaged. Over 600 sacred sites damaged. Over 70,000 people have been injured. Over 2 million people have been displaced. As someone said here earlier, the ceasefire resolution is not about sides. It is about ending the violence on both sides. It is about allowing the Israeli hostages and Palestinian political prisoners to be released, allowing humanitarian aid to enter for the Palestinian babies who are starving to death without formula, for the children who are being orphaned, for the elderly who are losing limbs. How many people need to be killed for us to call a ceasefire? Pass the revised ceasefire resolution now. Thank you.
Thank you, Shanti. Next we have Grace Malloy, then Harshada Wagner, and then Starchild.
Hello. Can you hear me? I'm Grace Malloy. I live in Miners Oaks. I'd like to thank the council for making a meeting for this resolution. That was brave and loving. Creating peace both locally and globally is a difficult, often messy task, but this is truly important. Look at all of us here trying to work it out. This is peace in process. I want to say ditto to Von Montgomery's comments. I'd like to speak about the question of whether or not a small city has any duty or even any right to advocate for peace internationally. There's a significant precedence for Ojai doing so, actually. At the March 8th, 2022 City Council meeting, at which 2 of the 4 of you were present and in office, a proclamation in support of the people of Ukraine was signed. And Brian Berman, co-founder of Ojai International City of Peace, whose idea this all was, gave a speech detailing ICP's history and supporting this model of peace advocacy by our city. Former city manager James Vega said in that meeting, quote, "We now see why cities taking these positions and stands is important." And he said, quote, "We wanted to highlight those actions that cities can take to show that they support peace." End quote. At the end of the proclamation itself, the city council wrote, quote, "While also recognizing that this proclamation from one small town bears little meaning on its own, we appeal to other cities and governments to make similar affirmations on behalf of their citizens and to call on their national leaders to help preserve the sovereignty of Ukraine." End quote. This meeting in 2022 and the resulting proclamation made it clear to me that our city already decided it's our job to speak up, as written in the letter of intent to become an international city of peace in 2014. Quote, "We endeavor to promote international peace and security." How is asking for peace between Israel and Gaza less important than supporting Ukraine in their war? Please don't shy away from passing this ceasefire resolution because it's more controversial than your 2022 proclamation. Please pass the revised resolution and protect Palestinians and Israelis who are.
Thank you, Grace. Next, we have Harshada Wagner, then Starchild, and then Ben Winkler.
Good evening, council, mayor, good evening, everyone else. Why did you have to make the pizza announcement right before I got up? So I came here tonight to ask you once again to pass this ceasefire resolution. But then we did the Pledge of Allegiance. And I realized it's not going to happen. Because this flag that we are pledging allegiance to is a flag that is there because we stole and committed a genocide that we have never been held accountable for. So why would the city council of a town that is on unceded Chumash land pass such a resolution against another genocide? We're talking about the wrong thing. This isn't just about Gaza. It's the West Bank. It's the settlements. It's the Alaska Mosque. It's not about a ceasefire. I mean, it would be amazing and preposterous for our government to stand behind anything standing up for the Palestinians. How could we? It would be hypocritical for this council to pass this resolution, especially in a town where 70% of the money comes from the taxes from the Ojai Valley Inn, from the Crown family, that has a major stock in General Dynamics. It's preposterous. And I just realized tonight, I just want to apologize for all of my naive effort that I've put forth coming to these meetings and giving these statements. And really and truly, blessings to all of you, and may God forgive all of us for this.
Thank you, Harshada. Next, we have Star Child, then Ben Winkler, and then Leora Snow.
Good evening. I wanted to thank the council for putting this ceasefire resolution on the agenda. I think it shows a lot of courage. I personally am not going to support this resolution, and I wanted to explain a little bit why. I think that a resolution should do three things. One is condemn the violence or threats of violence against protesters and also the Jewish community. I think that's really necessary for our city. The other thing that it should do, and I think this resolution does it pretty well, is ask Israel to minimize deaths, civilian deaths in Gaza. And the third thing, which I think this resolution doesn't do, is condemn Hamas. I don't believe that there can ever be a lasting peace as long as Hamas has the capability of repeating October 7th, which they promised to do again and again. When I read the newest resolution, I see that there was a whereas clause that condemned Hamas that now reads the militant wing of Hamas. And I wonder to myself, and I don't know every member of Hamas, which part of Hamas is not the militant wing? Which part doesn't want the destruction of Israel? And I think if we ask ourselves, the answer is that every part of Hamas wants the destruction of Israel. No part of Hamas is compatible with peace, and I think it needs to be fully condemned. So for that reason, I'm not supporting the resolution tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Star Child. Next, we have Ben Winkler, then Leora, and then Nuri.
Good evening. First, I want to say I just jotted down my thoughts here in a little list. Every mother on both sides cries the same. Doesn't matter what the conflict is and what sides they're on. Both sides need to be heard. Yet this is the wrong format. I'm a veteran. I started out before Desert Storm. I went through Desert Storm. I have maybe a little different perspective from 12 years on the ground in the Middle East. We have two camps here, and that's where our problem starts. I spent half my adult life working for the United Nations. I received the Joint Nobel Peace Prize in 1988. I retired as Chief of Police of Northern Israel between Jerusalem and the Lebanese border for the United Nations. This is way too complex for us here. It's all about attitude. It's not about power. I've seen more death in global conflicts than anyone in this town combined, sadly to say. We create division here. Obviously, we're all passionate about it from both sides. But by threats to either side, we are doing and becoming just the same. Violence in either form creates just more of that. We are carrying on hatred here. A challenge for all of us here, regardless of side. Let's create a suitable forum. There must be qualified individuals in this town to lead such efforts. For example, nonviolent communication by Marshall Rosenberg, etc. This is not about politics. It's about humanity. And finishing off, we all should have decency for a minute of silence for each and everyone killed in both sides. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. Next, we have Leora, then Nuri, and then Alan Shorb.
From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. From the river to the sea, free, free, free. Today I wear earrings that symbolize garlic and watermelon side by side. They tried to bury our body. They didn't know we were seeds. When Israel came into Palestine, a land lived on, lived with for thousands of years by the Palestinian people, they forbade the symbol of the flag, the colors of the flag that you see in the watermelon. So the Palestinian people, in the beauty of their resistance, sewed it into their clothing, made beautiful symbols with it. So we celebrate the watermelon, the garlic, because the Jewish people are of a diaspora. Diaspora, the spreading out like seeds. Diaspora, it comes from a Greek word from the Talmud that says, go be spread out among the world. We are meant to be of a diaspora. So it is antithetical to say this one land is ours, especially when we say it will bring us safety. We will never find safety by doing to others what was done to us. We will never find safety in invoking violence. Please vote yes on the updated resolution.
Next, we have Nuri, then Alan Shorb, and then Michelle Johnson.
Thank you so much. Last time I gift you 5 books about the origin of Zionism and Israel. I hope you read it. You did? Thank you. Yes, Israel as it is murdering children got to go. Not Jewish people. My husband was Jewish. I have my daughter, she's Jewish. Beautiful. It's not about that. It's about taking over the land of people last 100 years and not living in peace with them together as citizens, loving, but killing them, pushing them off with bulldozers, 1-year-old children killing children. That's what Israel is doing. This must be stopped. This is real. But living together. I'm going to just recite, I don't have time, the poetry of Sadi 900 years ago. Human beings are part of each other. That's why we are from the same texture. when one part of our body hurts, the rest hurts too. If you don't feel hurt when another part is hurting, you're not human. Thank you. Thank you for.
Thank you, Nuri. Next, we have Alan Shorb, then Michelle Johnson, and then Andy Ishmael.
Hello, I'm Alan Shorb. I live in Upper Ojai and I favor the resolution version number 2. So many of my friends have very eloquently spoken for voting for the resolution. And to me, it seemed I want to echo the words of a previous speaker who opposes the resolution. What are you doing? It's so simple. 30,000 people have died in Gaza already. Without a ceasefire, that number with disease and famine will become 3 or 4 times or even an order of magnitude more than it is now. That's so simple. Another speaker against the resolution accused the resolution of being one-sided. I agree with that to some extent. The mention of October 7th in this resolution frames the resolution as supporting Israel. I want to quote you from, I don't have much time left. A much more even-handed version of that same paragraph appears in the Oakland resolution. Over 1,000 people in Israel and more than 11,000 Palestinians in Gaza have been killed in a matter of weeks, of whom over 5,000 are children. That was November 27th, 3 months ago, almost exactly.
Thank you, Alan. Next, we have Michelle Johnson, then Handy Ishmael, and then Nora Harold.
And I push the button. Can you hear me? I just want to thank you for allowing me to participate in this democratic process and also to hear everyone's perspective. It is always an honor to hear everyone and to have a peaceful exchange. I am in support of the ceasefire resolution. I am a graduate of UCLA, where I studied political science with a specialization in international relations. I'm also a graduate of Pepperdine University, where I got my received my graduate degree in education with an emphasis in psychology. I did my graduate field research in a country that was recovering from war with the United Nations Development Program. And I currently work with refugees that are victims of this war and that are completely shattered. I speak on their behalf, and they are interfaith. They are not just Muslim. They are not just Christian. They are victims of war. And they have shared with me that they have experienced coexisting peacefully as a Muslim, as a Christian, as a Jewish person. And so to them, directly from them, they do not believe that this is a religious issue. This is a political issue. So I stand for them. I also stand for the children. 12,000 children have died. I've heard people say that the children that have died are future terrorists. No child is a future terrorist. Every child deserves to live out their life. I stand here for the active duty airman, active duty Air Force soldier who set himself on fire as an extreme protest to this war. I stand here for the Israeli reservists who are refusing to participate in this war in our.
Thank you, Michelle. Next, we have Handy, then Nora Harold, and then Rabbi Morty.
Evening, everybody. The Palestinians have long life in this land, as I studied archaeology and Egyptology particularly. Their names are mentioned on the Egyptian temples since thousands of years ago. They were called the Blesti, the tribes living in that area. Later on, the letter B converted into F, which is Palestini in Arabic, Palestinian in English. If this was on the ancient Egyptian temples 3,000 years ago, this must be existing in there for more than that far away. I don't understand why the United States of America is supporting always wars. I never heard that we are partners of peace in this world. Every time, every few years, every few months, we're bombing someplace in the world. What did we gain from that? All the weapon manufacturers are the ones who are making money out of this. All our taxpayer money is spent on wars and killing and blood and genocides. What did we gain from this at the very end of the day? We need to take care of our own people in our country, and we need to spread out peace in the whole world. We don't want to see this bloodshed, and the wrong things are going on since 1948 when this land was made as a religious country. This is not a religious country. This is a Zionist political movement, and all the Jews, the good Jews, which understand that from their Talmud book, it said, don't make a country in the exile. And this country is violating even their own book, the Torah or the Talmud. We need to cease fire in this place and there. These people have to live in peace in their own land. We cannot kill them and send.
Thank you, Handy. Next, we have Nora Harold and then Rabbi Morty.
Hi, everyone. I understand why you've taken this up. This is democracy. We live in a democracy, and this demand was made of you by your constituents on both sides. People on both sides of this issue have demanded it from you when you look at how many are here tonight. I've been trying to wrap my mind around a nuance here, and I think it's fascism. We're less safe due to the rise of fascism. The anti-Semitism in this country began to rise under the Trump presidency, which supported a fascist agenda. Netanyahu supports far right-wing fascist ideology. Hamas supports far right-wing ideology, fascist ideology. It feels like the issues of safety and suffering and violence are rooted in this rise. And I believe a call for a ceasefire is a step towards pushing back the rise of fascism. I support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Nora. Next, we have Rabbi Morty and then Diego Ramirez.
Hi, my name is Rabbi Morty. I'm the local rabbi here in the city of Ojai and the director of Chabad of Ojai. I live in this wonderful community with my wife, 8 children, thank God. The Jewish nation was gifted the land of Israel as an everlasting inheritance. The Jewish nation lives by Torah law, which teaches that one must practice self-defense. If someone, God forbid, is attempting to kill you, you must be ready to kill them first. Protecting its citizens is probably the most important concept of any government, including the United States. As to the agenda item tonight, let me be clear. No resolution regarding the Israel-Hamas war should be passed by our city council. As a community, we understand far too little about a very complex conflict to make a meaningful contribution. The draft resolution is naive at best, written using data from one angle with false claims. For example, it describes a permanent ceasefire. Ceasefires are rarely permanent. Those involving Hamas have never been. Also, the resolution ignores Hamas's commitment to destroy Israel. If, as Hamas has promised, it continues to pursue this goal, Israel will continue to respond and Palestinians will continue to die. More importantly, any substantive resolution on this emotional topic will be divisive, as we have seen since it was first introduced a few months ago. This is at a time when the council should focus on local issues and restoring harmony. Our city council should focus on the real and pressing issues that directly impact our daily lives here in Ojai. Let's work together to ensure that Ojai continues to thrive as a true international city of peace that not only stands against hate, but also proactively works towards the betterment of its residents in tangible, everyday ways. I pray for a time of world peace when, as the prophet Isaiah states, nation shall not lift a sword against them.
Thank you, Rabbi Morty. Next, we have Diego Ramirez.
You may have turned off the
Thank you.
microphone.
Is it working now?
Yes.
Awesome. So on behalf of the rabbi, I want to add a few things. We claim to be a city of peace and we claim to want to work together. And I'm speaking as one because we are the people. My name is Diego, and I think we can all agree that this is a community problem. It's gone too far. It's been, 76 years? And at this point, we just kind of need to grow up and think about something that's better for all of us. Because at this point, this is just a stain, and it's making us all look bad. And you sitting and doing nothing and agreeing when the money comes in, it makes all of us look bad, and it makes you look like hypocrites, because think about fingers pointing back at you. You want to point fingers, but look at multiple of 4 and multiple contradictions to what you want to say. And it's just, I have a minute left. Okay. So I just want us to come together, and it's been a while, and I see flags getting put up and I see hate. And I hear about flags getting torn down, and that sparks fear in the community. And when we're scared, we don't really think about much. We think about what makes us feel safe. And the thing is, it may not be our problem directly because it's not on our soil, but think about other people other than your families, other than people that you see around town. It doesn't really take that much. We have money, we have funds. So why don't we put it towards somewhere that actually does a difference for us? Instead of complaining about things and not making any change, this is what it's been like a month or 2 since we last spoken. And what have you guys done? Do you guys wait for us to come around and talk before you guys do anything and pick it up? I don't understand, because it's frustrating, that's all. And
Thank you, Diego. All right, that's the end of the cards. How about if we take a brief, oh, there's one more?
Yes,
Okay.
Mayor, we do have one more card in-house, and I would like to give the opportunity to the public attending. We've received many public speaker cards, Mayor, and if anyone feels they did not have their card heard, or if I would also just issue a last call before we move on. And this card we have now is Kimmy. If the green light is on.
All right. I will read a post by an American hero, Aaron Bushnell, who lit himself on fire yesterday as a form of extreme protest. He said this: many of us like to ask ourselves, what would I do if I was alive during slavery or the Jim Crow South or apartheid? What would I do if my country was committing genocide? The answer is, you're doing it right now. He lit himself on fire, and there's a picture of an officer pulling a gun on this man that's burning himself alive to death. That, in a nutshell, is the image of a hyper-militarized, morally bankrupt society that only speaks in the language of bullets and bombs.
this soldier, this brave soldier, will be depicted in the media as being mentally ill, while the true sickness, insanity, and inhumanity is festering in societies who remain silent or disengaged, while entire bloodlines are being wiped out in real time. By now, you are all aware of the list of war crimes committed by Israel, not just in the past 5 months, but for decades. Apparently, no crime, from settler colonialism to starvation as a weapon of war to outright torture, is enough to make the leaders of this so-called free world say stop. To continue to stay silent is not due to a lack of knowledge. It is a deliberate and conscious choice, while Israel's massacres are in full view for the world to see. When history books are written, no one will be able to say that they didn't know. We uphold those who have taken a principled stance, but we will question and challenge all who have the influence, leadership, power, or privilege and have chosen to say nothing. We will remember those who tried to put the fire out and those who continued to draw their weapons on a civilization burning in flames. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Kimmy. All right.
Mayor,
Yes.
a question from the clerk's seat here. We do have our Zoom participants with
Okay.
raised hands. Would Mayor and Council like to take that now or after the break?
How many do we, this?
We currently have 3 raised hands on Zoom.
Okay, how about we take those and then we'll take a brief break?
Okay.
Thank you.
One further note, there has been a request for possibly multiple people to speak through one Zoom account. We've received that in the clerk's office today, which is entirely possible. I'm seeing some no's. Okay. One comment for each raised hand on Zoom. First, we'll start with Baruch, followed by Friend, and then Joel. Baruch, you have the floor. Stand by.
Am I unmuted?
Yes, please proceed.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I wonder if anyone on this committee is a military strategist. How can we choose to make a decision on an ongoing war without that expertise? How could this proclamation that was presented not condemn all of the immorality? It's incomplete. Our moral strategy should be our individual and communal focus to condemn rape on all sides and make sure that any proclamation that's presented to this committee be full and complete. President Biden called the rape by Hamas reprehensible. It needs to be a full stop. Speakers of the House, Congresswomen as well, have condemned this rape, but it's omitted from this proclamation. To me, it seems like an incomplete proclamation that will not properly present a focus of peace. So I plead for the committee to reconsider and not present this proclamation.
Next, we have Friend, followed by Joel, and then Alan Greenberg.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, please proceed.
Okay. Over 30,000 killed up to this point. If you didn't call for a ceasefire in the month 1, if you didn't call for a ceasefire in month 2, if you didn't call for a ceasefire in month 3, fine. Maybe you didn't understand what had occurred prior to October 7th. If you don't understand that, fine. But at this point in time, it is time to call for a ceasefire. Our tax dollars funding this war is another way of saying we are invested in it. Make a stance, pass the resolution as is, and set a precedence for the youth that we do not invest in senseless war. It is time to call the IDF soldiers off of Palestine. Enough is enough. There are too many children that have died. There are children that are now dying of starvation. How can one sleep at night knowing that the blood, sweat, and tears of their labor result in the blood, sweat, and tears of innocent population. Make a stand. Take a stance. And I want to point out one contradiction. There was a woman saying that this war had nothing to do with religion, and the rabbi himself said that the nation is founded and anchored in religion, and their response is to kill first. That does not sound like peace to me. This is not Palestinians versus Jews. This is a stance against the military-industrial complex and the $300 billion that we as Americans have invested into this war. Thanks for your time.
Next, we have Joel, followed by Alan Greenberg, and then Cyrus. Joel, you have the floor.
Hello, I'm a resident of Santa Barbara County, born and raised here in this area, and I support a permanent ceasefire, and that is the new updated revised one, the second one that was read off today. Yeah, I want to use my voice and speak up against the genocide that we're witnessing right now in Palestine, and yeah, be a part of it and speaking up against the atrocities that are being witnessed right now, ongoing. And we know that it didn't start on October 7th, and we know that it's been an ongoing struggle for liberation for the Palestinians for over 75 years. And we want to make the connection and correlations between the people on these lands, Chumash lands, and Olive Turtle Island, and the connection of genocide that is continuing to happen in today's day. It's 2024, and we are still witnessing an attempt of erasure of a whole people. And we want to speak up and speak on behalf of Palestine and freeing Palestine. So this is for a permanent ceasefire and yeah, and that's just so little of what we can be doing, and that's speaking up and yeah, calling for a ceasefire, calling for our places that we reside to speak up against genocide. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Joel.
Next, we have Alan Greenberg, followed by Cyrus, and then Nadine Zayad. Alan, you have the floor. Alan, you may unmute.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, please proceed.
I don't have enough time to refute the many false statements tonight by the pro-Gazans. Yes, we are sitting on Chumash land. Also, the Jews have been sitting on their land, have been a major presence in the Holy Land, equally as long or longer than the Chumash. Jesus was born Jewish, and he was born long after the Jews populated the area when they escaped slavery in Egypt after building the pyramids. Israelis are constantly attacked for being a Jewish state. Why is there not the same criticism of the many religious Muslim states, such as Iran and Saudi Arabia? Israel is the first time when Jews were able to defend themselves. I am sorry, but putting in the comment of permanent ceasefire is beyond outrageous, especially supporting a permanent ceasefire. So far, the council has no blame in this crazy game. But if you pass this heavily based resolution, and then that is what actually happens on the ground over there, then every subsequent terrorist attack will have your fingerprints on it. The blame for the inevitable blood that will be spilled in Israel by the future attacks of the Hamas terrorists will be placed on you, and rightfully so. You must understand that Israel wants to finally eliminate Hamas once and for all, so that the civilians of Gaza who are living under the iron fist of Hamas can start anew with a respectable leadership to permit them to join the rest of the nations in the world who will then be able to accept them as equals. Let's not join the woke cities. Vote no.
Thank you, Alan.
Next, we have Cyrus, followed by Nadine Zayad, and then Samila. Cyrus, you have the floor.
Peace, y'all. Grateful to be here today. I wish I was there in person, but I'm grateful to join here through Zoom. I wanted to make a few clarifying statements. I want to ask ourselves, why do people feel unsafe in Ojai? This has been a heavily discussed topic tonight. And I think it's important to recognize that the reason that there's an unsafe climate for our Jewish relatives, I myself am Jewish, and I also feel unsafe. And the reason for that unsafety is Zionism in reality, because the state of Israel was founded as a colonial state. Before the Balfour Declaration, 97% of Israel was Muslim and Palestinian. Afterwards, and through colonization of those lands, the state was established through brutality, violence, genocide that we see today. And so, due to the military actions of the state of Israel, we have the unsafe environment for Jewish and Muslim people living throughout the diaspora. And so I think if we use our intelligence to examine the resolution, we see that the resolution is against anti-Semitism and Islamophobia. We must use our intelligence to understand that this resolution is speaking for peace for all people. We cannot allow the emotions to cloud that factual words that are stated in this resolution. In the second revised edition is what I'm advocating for. And when the rabbi says the Jews were gifted the state of Israel, who gifted the state of Israel? Was it God? Was it the colonial states of the United States?
Thank you, Cyrus.
Next, we have Samila, followed by Yenny Gonzalez. I'm sorry, we did have Nadine Zayad next, although she raised her hand. Nadine, I'll give you the option to unmute now, and you have the floor.
Can you hear me?
Yes, please proceed.
Okay. So I'm the daughter and granddaughter of Palestinian refugees who lost everything in 1967. But we need to realize what happened in October 7 did not happen in a vacuum. 75 years ago, Israel claimed statehood in historic Palestine. Since the indigenous Palestinians have been occupied in their own land by Israeli colonizers, the longest occupation in modern history. Palestinians have been fighting Western colonialism for over 100 years. Palestinians have been dehumanized in the Western and Israeli media. Western politicians choose to ignore the reality of this genocide and occupation. I will not, okay? I'm fortunate my family made it to Ventura, California, and I'm fortunate that I'm a Palestinian American. You know, I have rights that most Palestinians do not have. I do feel unsafe, okay? My masjid has hired security for every religious and social function. Wearing my keffiyeh, I receive long stares everywhere I go. At school, the farmer's market, shopping, the library. This weekend, I got the middle finger when I was at the collections. You know, my keffiyeh is a symbol of resistance and existence of my Palestinian identity because we're being erased in this genocide. Earlier, someone else gave statistics, so I will not, but this is the 143rd day of the genocide. You know, bombs have dropped everywhere in Gaza, making it unlivable. Years from now, students will study the Palestinian genocide and wonder, how did the world let this happen? The genocide in Gaza is the most documented and live-streamed genocide in history. What is happening will cause trauma to the whole world, to anyone who possesses a heart and is depressed seeing the images coming out of Gaza. We are collectively traumatized as we are ignored in our pleas to stop this genocide. Americans feel sick with tremendous guilt knowing our tax money is funding this genocide. This guilt will haunt us forever because no one is listening to us. What we can do is call for an immediate and permanent ceasefire. I am in favor of the second one because it's less racist. Please stop all U.S. aid to apartheid Israel and ceasefire now. Please have a heart. Ceasefire now.
Thank you, Nadine.
Next, we have Samila, followed by Yenny Gonzalez. Samila, you have the floor. You are muted. Please proceed.
Oh, okay. It's Samia, by the way. Yeah,
I don't think that I'm gonna spend my time saying any other statistics and facts. I hope that they've been heard. I'm in support of a permanent ceasefire resolution. This is the least that we could do with our power as a gesture of witnessing the horrors and genocide that is being funded by our tax dollars. It's been said, but to say it again, I don't know what else could be done when this genocide is being live streamed. We can literally watch and see the violence and the displacement and the way that humanitarian aid and food is being withheld from folks that are just in starvation right now. So this is literally the least that we could do is call for a ceasefire, and the ceasefire is not anti-Semitic at all. The ceasefire is in protection and an honoring of all life, and it is it is in no way a gesture to make anybody in Ojai feel unsafe. So let that just be disarmed and let people really stand to value life and not be living from fear. So that's all I have to say.
Revised.
Thank you so
Oh
much.
yeah, the revised resolution número 2.
Thank you.
Next, we have Yenny Gonzalez. Yenny, you have the floor.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you so much. Hi, council members. Thank you so much for making it through this whole meeting, for carving out time to hear our voices and our deep, genuine concern. I'm here to voice my support for the ceasefire resolution, for the second resolution that was made. You're in a position right now as I speak to hear your communities pleas to stand up for peace, to stand up for the innocent children of Gaza, to stand up for our earth, our water that is being completely decimated by toxic bombs, to stand up for compassion, to stand up for humanity, to be a human, to feel. No human, no culture, or land deserves to be completely bombed off the face of this planet. There is absolutely no justification for so many loss of civilian lives. No life is more important than the other. Please reach deep in your heart, in your truth, in your clarity of your sound mind to stand with us, your community of many different religious and cultural backgrounds who spoke for this ceasefire resolution, to stand with the millions of people, plus the 70 cities across the nation demanding for our federal government to support the ceasefire resolution. You know, what will you say to your future generations who ask you what side of history you stood on during this horrendous act of genocide and complete disregard for human and more than human life? What will you say, and how will you sleep at night? Thank you again for hearing our voices. Ceasefire now. And you are doing your job, by the way, by being here, by listening to us, by standing here with us. You're doing your job. And the stats are clear. Our tax dollar, it's clear where it's going. It's all very clear. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next, we have Marcy Tosher. Marcy, you have the floor.
Hi, just briefly, I heard all night constantly repeated ceasefire, ceasefire, as if it was something that was going to happen. I just wanted to remind everybody that a ceasefire would be meaningless and illusory to declare that, because I want to remind everybody that October 7th took place during a ceasefire. So I don't think that a ceasefire will be honored anyway on both sides. So I think that this has been an exercise in futility. All right, that's my opinion. Thanks.
Thank you, Marcy.
That concludes our public comment period, Mayor.
Okay, wonderful. All right, let's take a brief break and then we'll come back for discussion. Thank you. Leslie, can I ask you something? Did I remember? Excuse me, if you could take your seats, we're gonna come back. So if you'd come to quiet, please. Okay, we are back and we will move on to discussion. So if everybody could please find a seat and come to quiet. Okay, we will move on to discussion. So who would like to begin?
I'll begin.
Okay, Councilmember or Mayor Pro Tem Whitman.
So I have I don't think it was the right decision to bring this issue back to us. I have concern that the ceasefire resolution is divisive to the community. I do not believe that addressing the appropriate way to devise military strategy or international diplomacy is within the city council subject matter jurisdiction. And we don't have any subject matter expertise, and we didn't receive any reports that would substitute as subject matter expertise for how it is that we can best go about achieving lasting peace in Israel and Gaza. One of the reasons I believe that the resolution is divisive is because I've talked to a number of the Jewish community here in Ojai, and you know, I've just kind of learned about this word, the concept of a trigger word since I've been on city council. I've never really heard that term before. But I've started to understand a little bit about it. And what I think occurs is that the word ceasefire is a trigger word to the Israeli community. I don't think any of our, well, I don't want to speak for that community, but I don't think anybody in this room is really against the concept of lasting peace. And the question is, how do you get there? And calling a ceasefire to that Israeli community is what I have gathered. It's the equivalent of saying, lay down your arms and die. That's the way they feel. I don't understand it, but I believe them when they tell me that that's the way they feel.
If we could keep quiet, please. Thank you.
So I think someone said there's been 70 cities in the United States who have signed on to a ceasefire resolution. I think, you know, to put that in perspective, there's 482 cities in California, and there's over 100,000 cities in the United States. And I think the reason that they all haven't jumped onto the ceasefire resolution is because it doesn't say, let's achieve lasting peace. It says ceasefire. And that makes it something that is not acceptable to a huge part of our community. So I think we could reach a consensus that we should attempt to achieve lasting peace and to support efforts for lasting peace in the Middle East. I think we could reach a consensus for the need for immediate humanitarian relief to Gaza. And I think that we could reach a consensus for a pause to allow for humanitarian aid and for the negotiation for the release of hostages. But ceasefire adds a component of divisiveness, where a large percentage of the people in this room, once you say that, they disagree. I view our job as to support and protect every resident of the city of Ojai, and the ceasefire resolution does not support every resident of the city of Ojai. With respect to this not being our subject matter, we don't decide how federal taxes are spent. We don't decide how much money is allocated to the military. We don't decide how much money is allocated to foreign aid. We do elect federal office holders to make those decisions and participate in making those decisions and voting for us. And those representatives are Salud Carbajal, LaFonza Butler, and Alex Padilla. And I think that tonight's exercise, could have been, extremely beneficial if it was streamed to those three people who are going to be making, decisions. Going back to the resolution, the last time I checked, there were like less than 100 congressmen and senators that had signed on to the House Resolution 786. So no one outside of the Ojai Valley has been waiting for Ojai's position on the Israel-Hamas situation. And so because of that, I don't think it is valuable for us to be setting off a significant portion of our community. None of us were elected to address and express our views on international politics. I can't recall, I've been following elections in Ojai for over 30 years, and I can't recall anyone ever running on or campaigning on their view on international politics. I would have liked to seen us spend the amount of time we've spent on Israel and Gaza, having the people of Ojai come in to tell us what it is that they want us to address to make their lives better here in Ojai. I do not support using the city council to address international politics. I do not support the city council taking sides, like we're picking teams on the playground to say, hey, this is a very artificial circumstance to me, because that each of you has a relationship with your elected representatives but we don't get to decide this. It's somebody else that's deciding it. And so the concept that a majority of the city council is going to decide for the entire city for an issue that we don't have jurisdiction over is really doesn't make sense to me. We are not subject matter experts on international diplomacy. There are career people who spend their entire lives learning how to negotiate with our foreign nations that we have relationships with in order to achieve the best results for the United States. And I have complete trust. I can't conceive that our State Department representatives are not working tirelessly to try to bring out lasting peace, to try to bring an end to the violence that's going on. And they are the best ones to engage in that exercise. I spoke to somebody who spent 35 years in the State Department over the weekend. And the biggest thing that I came out of that conversation with is that the things that are being said by leaders to the press are irrelevant. What's important is what's being said behind closed doors, discussing what needs to be done and how to achieve what needs to be done. And what we see in the press, it's window dressing to the real work that's being done. A couple of people have kind of touched upon this tonight, and they've gone in different directions, but since the 4th century and probably before that, the land that we're talking about, the territory we're talking about, has been repeatedly invaded. The Holy Roman Empire decided that Jerusalem needed to be part of its, I'm not sure exactly what their thought process was, but we had the Crusades. We were continually, there were powers that continually took over that land, and then it was continually taken back. And it happens that those conflicts and the exchange, the changes in control were largely Arab or Muslim versus Christian or Judeo-Christian. And we now have a situation where 100 years ago, people thought it was going to be a good idea to set up the state of Israel on that land. And none of us were around or participated in it. And as long as that situation has been in place, there has been constant violence, constant hostility, and it, solutions are reached and negotiations happen, and then they're right back where they started within some short period of time. And I don't see this moment in time, 2024, and a potential ceasefire demand moving the needle at all on an issue that is just horrifically complex in terms of how to satisfy and make people happy live together in that region. So essentially, I mean, I would I would look at, even though I don't think this is our subject matter, I would look at and seriously consider a resolution that was asking for our leaders to work on achieving lasting peace in the Middle East. But beyond that statement, I don't think we should weigh in.
Councilmember Francina? Yes.
So first of all, thank you all for speaking so well and so eloquently. I felt that no matter what your perspective was, I could see, you stated it so well that I could see, I could grasp on a deep level what you were trying to convey. And without that kind of a reach, that's what nonviolent communication is. When I was at the Yoga Institute in San Francisco about 100 years ago, I remember one of the teachers, she wrote a book called What We Say Matters, Judith Lassiter. And I couldn't understand, how could you possibly understand someone whose whole viewpoint is completely different from yours? But it is possible. And that's how real communication starts. So everyone here in this room comes from a different background. We're all products of our childhood. I spent my first 7, 8, almost 8 years in Holland, and I grew up hearing my mother speak about the Nazi occupation of Holland and how her Jewish friends disappeared. We'd look at photographs of her school, and she would look very sad and point to her Jewish friends that disappeared. My father was one of the very few survivors of a prison camp, a Japanese prison camp, and he witnessed the atomic bomb fall on Nagasaki. And he told stories, and as time passed, he was even tell the worst stories, even with a strange, ironic sense of humor, but we grew up with that. So, and as he was on his deathbed, he worried that we now have the capacity to kill everyone on Earth. I think it's 20 times. So you can be sure that the industrial military complex is not doing a good job creating peace in this world. That's just the truth, okay? America is run by the industrial military complex. You can see, and we are all impacted. All that money, it's so obvious, all that money our tax money, our hard-earned tax money that's going into war could be creating a utopia, a most wonderful world. And therefore, some of us have to have that vision. I have that vision that we can have a different world. And maybe it's unrealistic, but so many things that were unrealistic 100 years ago are gradually, entering the mainstream. So I took so many notes. I would like to have a transcript of this whole, of the whole meeting. I was riveted by everything that everyone said. And one of the things, and you're correct in saying that ceasefire, the term ceasefire is a trigger word. And there's this, I've met with a number of my Jewish friends or acquaintances, and they all do state that they believe that it's that ceasefire, that the resolution, they blame the resolution, the weeks, the months that we've discussed, or people that have come to the podium to discuss a proposed ceasefire resolution. They blame that for contributing to anti-Semitism. But I think that's backward thinking. I think that a ceasefire is the best way to stop or reduce anti-Semitism. The truth is that violence begets violence. And if you think about it, all these, this generation that's growing up in a war-torn country, A child that grows up and knows that the Israeli killed their whole family or vice versa, they're not going to be happy with somebody said something about we're going to like save them from Hamas and I can't remember the words. But we know that children, the trauma is, what's the word, generational, okay? And so we know this is not the way to solve humanity's problems. We know that we have to evolve. We have to take that step. And during the break, I read the resolution once more. And we sitting here on the dais, if there is some wording that would make it more acceptable, I'm very happy to consider it. I think that we worked a group of us worked very hard. What you see before you went through about 15 revisions. You know, every time I met with someone, I would think, oh, we should change this or that. And as did other people that worked on this. So I am, I know it's not perfect. Okay, it's not perfect. This world is there is so much evil and injustice in this world. This is our small gesture, I feel, in the right direction. So I do support this resolution. And I do hope that my colleagues, if they want to make tweaks, now's the time to do it, if you can make it more acceptable. And I also did hear, I mean, I've heard there were a lot of things said that I took so many notes, you know. I respect that I sympathize and respect that I have Jewish friends that do feel fear, but I do feel this fear is not going to go away if the war effort it's scheduled to increase unless something has happened in the last few hours, you know. But as far as I know, I read in the LA Times that they're getting ready to move into, what's the name of it? Yeah. And there is no way that this is going to lead to lasting peace. It's only going to cause more devastation and suffering. So, okay, I'm in support.
Councilmember Rule. Do you want to make a motion, Susan, or not? You want me to speak first? Like if
Yes.
you wanted to make a motion, you
Yeah,
would
my
have, so
motion-
pardon me.
Yeah, but I wanted to give
Okay.
my colleagues, in case they wanted to change the language, if they don't.
No,
then
that's
I'll-
fine.
I'll make a motion to accept.
Yeah, no,
this resolution. Yeah.
that was not
It's okay.
great.
Yeah.
Well, this is not complicated. It's not complicated. No one here is attempting to solve the Middle East crisis. That's never the point. That is not the point of this. And as we worked on this, we peeled back the layers. We decided that 1948 wasn't going to enter into this. 1973 wasn't going to enter into this. The only thing that was going to enter into this was, did we have an obligation to make a call to stop what was happening in Gaza and the potential for the devastation that will happen to the Palestinian people? And could we do that? And could we do that such that we did not alienate as much as possible our Jewish neighbors and friends? Two of my best friends in Ojai have spoken against this. That having been said, what it comes down to for me is where are your values? Where do you hold your values? Some value humanitarian aid or whatever it is. My values say this is a humanitarian call. Do I believe that this is going to change anybody's mind? Well, I decided not to start thinking in those terms. But one thing I will say, that coming up in the election, if Joe Biden loses progressive Democrats, he's done. So let's just keep that in mind as we move forward, okay? So if we want to look at furthering what's going to happen, Biden needs progressive Democrats. So one thing that really occurred to me was the generational divide here, who came up and who spoke. The under
30 and 40 crowd was clear on what this meant. And for that, I completely, and I'm not discounting those who are not, underneath that, in that demographic, but it was amazing to me that that demographic 100% fell on the side of calling for a ceasefire. And I think it's just really interesting to note why that is. I don't know why that is. I could make guesses, but it was very, very poignant to me that such was the case. As far as, is this, our business? When municipalities, rather than individuals, make calls for certain things, it does matter, because what it says is a collective of that group has said that it rises above the individual and it talks to the collective, the municipality. So I think that for that, it makes a difference to me. It's different when this municipality makes that call. I did not realize, so I need to thank the woman who spoke, and I know you, Grace, who spoke about the International City of Peace. I don't think any of us knew that. The International City of Peace has been telling us that it's a local issue. Well, guess what? In 2022, I did not know that. In 2022, there was a proclamation for Ukraine. And there was, and I also didn't realize that in the charter of the International City of Peace, it is about an international peace. So as we've been hearing all of that, this was sort of a revelation to me, because that has been the party line across the board, that, we are only local. Such is not the case. We have a calling and we voted for that. I've also been told that, well, I mean, I could talk about a lot of this, but really it is about a humanitarian call for a ceasefire. I have worked in the old city of Jerusalem. I have worked on the kibbutz with Seeds of Peace. I have worked with the Orthodox Union in Flatbush, New York. So I understand the permutations. I understand the range. And that was during the first and second Intifada. And just as a personal note, my dad was career military. He spent 3 tours in Vietnam. He was very close to My Lai. So I also understand what it does to individuals to live and fight in that way. My dad was gone the entire, from the time I was 8 until it was about 13 years, give or take. So that having been said, and then I just also wanted to say that for me, people did show up in my office and say, this is what I want to talk about. Overwhelmingly, more than anything, people have contacted me and said, this is what I want to talk about. My constituents, the people of Ojai. So why would I then say, sorry, I know better. This isn't something that we discuss. I discuss what my constituents want me to discuss. And that's just the way it is. And overwhelmingly, I heard from the constituents time and time again, please bring it back. Which leads me to December 20th, when we just abandoned the city council dais. So for me, a democratic process needed closure. And yes, there are numerous ways we could have had closure. We could have just come here and refused to take up any motion, and, then that would have been it. That would have been closure. We would have followed through with the process. But for me, it meant, a democratic process meant that this goes back to being heard across the board, and that we have a resolution. It took us a while to get here, as every good document does. It is revision after revision after revision, till finally, as John Houston said, somebody asked him, when do you know you're done? And he said, You don't, you just walk away. Well, we're not walking away, but we are putting it up for a vote. I guess, I could go on and on, but, I support this resolution 100%. And all of the reasons I believe that we move forward with it. It is symbolic, but it is also a symbol for us to say we believe in peace, we believe in trying, and we believe in a ceasefire. So that's where I stand on this.
Well, so, well, first I'd like to thank everyone who came. This is an incredible showing of community and engagement and really caring about each other and what's happening. So that's a beautiful thing. And I also want to thank you for listening with such respect, even when you disagree. And practice does make perfect. So we've made some good progress. So thank you so much. And I'd also like to thank our staff for spending so much time on this and making sure everything gets set up and we're able to carry on with business. Thank you to my council members for spending so much time considering this. I've thought a lot about this. I also want to thank everyone who talked to me. I met with Rabbi Lisa and Rabbi Morty, many members of the Jewish community, the head of the temple, members of the ceasefire group. I've walked and talked and had tea. And so thank you. I've learned so much. And there are many shades of gray in this issue. I think we can all agree to that. It's a moral decision, and most moral decisions, there are shades of gray, and our legal system is not gray. It's not on right and wrong, yes or no, guilty or not guilty. And I empathize with all the people with whom I spoke or corresponded who don't want the ceasefire. I see you and I hear your pain and your suffering and your discomfort, and that's real. And both sides in this war have committed atrocities and continue to do so. That said, I think it says a lot that the majority of Americans support a ceasefire, and most of us would prefer to see our tax dollars going in a direction that would support saving and protecting the environment, health, education, safety, and equity for all, rather than bombing innocent people. I believe that it is our moral obligation and responsibility as humans to do everything we can to reduce suffering of all beings with whom we share this planet. JFK said, "This country cannot afford to be materially rich and spiritually poor." So that's why I'm going to vote to reduce as much suffering as we can in any way we can at this moment. We need to commit to peace right now and every moment. And to quote several of you, war only creates more war and peace only creates more peace. And something that Nuria said really stuck out. You said you were really excited about your future, and every child and young adult deserves to feel like that excitement about the future. So peace is an action, and it's about humanity and supporting life for all. So I think it's really important that we stand up in this moment against violence and ending it on both sides. Is there a motion?
Do you want to make it, Leslie or Sean?
Sure, I'll make a motion. I'll make a motion that we accept the revised version of the resolution. I make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Roll call, please, Weston.
Yes, Mayor. We have a motion by Councilmember Rule with a second by Councilmember Francina to adopt the revised resolution, which was provided to the public today and clearly stated by Councilmember Rule at the beginning of the meeting of the City Council. And that motion is there. Let's have a roll call. Councilmember Rule,
Yes.
Mayor Sticks,
Yes.
Councilmember Francina,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Whitman.
No.
Motion.
All right, motion passes. All right, thank you all for being here and we are adjourned.